All right. Welcome, everyone, to The Wizard of Radical Self Respect. My name is Jared Mello, and today my guest is Kelly Conrad, also known as P Dubz, and she's a CPTSD and trauma expert, and she's in the middle of writing a book right now. But how are you today, Kelly?
I'm not too shabby, Jared. How are you?
Living the dream, as I always say. And today, I think this is going to be pretty interesting for people because you're someone that had late diagnosed autism. Right? This is
Mm,
something that you didn't know for the majority of your life. And then you've had all the things that we talk about in this space too: relationships with narcissists, narcissistic parents, CPTSD, other forms of neurodivergence, ADHD, all sorts. So there's so many things to talk about here.
yep. It's been an interesting 4 decades plus 3.
So how about this though? So people ask me a lot, what is the difference between how a woman presents with autism versus a man? And I guess we'll start this as a kid. So with a girl who would be autistic, what would be the differences in how they present versus a boy who is autistic?
So the difference is between boys and girls. Boys show a much earlier presentation in terms of the diagnostic criteria for the DSM-5. So one of the things that I learned in my journey to really understand, oh, how did this get missed? How does it show up, etc. My therapist sent me a podcast, a doctor that specializes in working with late diagnosed women. And so specifically, she actually walked through the DSM to show that the criteria still shows up in women. Like, we are still seeing that criteria, but the way that it shows up and when it shows up and how it shows up is where it differs. So it's not black and white in that sense. So little boys are going to show earlier signs and the more stereotypical parts of autism that when you hear that word, you would think of. Whereas girls, we are actually very, there's something called twice exceptional, which I will talk about. But girls typically are ahead of the curve at the start in their development. So we're often very hyperverbal. We learn to speak very young. Things like toilet training can be very, very, very simple for the parent. Like, I was apparently fully toilet trained, no diapers through the night by 18 months old. Like, that's
Super young.
exceptional. And my mom said it took, she did the let me run around without my diaper on method. That's what they did in the early 80s. And she said it worked like a charm. I was extremely independent as a small child. So from a narcissistic parent's perspective, that's easy for them because they don't have to actually attune to the child. The kid just does their thing, and that just feels really simple and easy for them. Whereas a boy is going to be like into thing, it's going to be more difficult. So automatically we fly under the radar right out of the get-go, because what the parent looks at that as, especially a narcissistic parent that's looking for that admiration and validation, this is bragging rights. Oh, my child is, my child's first word was bear. She's only 9 months old. It's a talking point. And then slowly, as girls get into elementary school, you're going to start to see the shift. It's very subtle. So with me, it was fine motor skills. I was exceptionally brilliant, ahead of my time with creative writing, all the things that I'm really good at now. But I couldn't use scissors. I couldn't tie my shoes. Things like that teachers started putting into report cards. And, coming from a narcissistic family, they viewed it as just laziness, defiance, not paying attention. And then we really show the stark presentation in that those puberty years. So there's going to
Yeah.
be major difficulty with relationships because of the literal thinking. We either come on way too strong, or we just don't know how to connect. Autistic people in general, but especially women, because of this lack of attunement and these very high expectations that get set from being so hyperverbal early on, is that we go into a constant state of fight and flight. So that's where all the gut issues come in. That's
Mm.
why we have gut issues. So those are some things.
So with boys, usually what happens is, right, their verbal abilities are often stunted, right? And that's one of the first things they'll notice. They're behind in their verbal and how they speak to others. And they'll probably socially isolate. They're not playing with the other kids. And that's one of the things that confused me, is that women or young girls that are autistic, they're not that way. Like, they can be hyperverbal and they can be very fluent. So that's something that I didn't realize until you told me.
Yep. And I didn't know anything about it really myself until I was diagnosed, and my therapist started walking me through things. And I started, like I said, I listened to this podcast with this doctor, Dr. Donna Henderson. All of her work is around late diagnosed, assigned female at birth women. So because it does show up so differently, and because of that, if you imagine, autism is, the little boy that can't find his words, and, like all the things that you just said, imagine how for girls with this lack of understanding, we show up at the same age as you, looking really exceptionally bright. Like, we actually look kind of off the charts. And so that expectation kind of gets held for girls as they continue to develop with this neurodevelopmental operating system.
Right.
And
Let me
what
ask you
ends
this,
up
though.
happening, sorry?
Is that what happens every time with girls, or is it only sometimes that's the case?
I would say it's, as you know, we want to make sure that we're not it's only this or that. But most often, women that I have spoken to that are either late diagnosed, or even women who were diagnosed early because now we have more information, that's pretty consistent for the most part. Again, if there's other comorbid things going on, it could like change the presentation. It kind of depends, but most times, if you're looking at like a general umbrella, what you said about boys is mostly going to be true, and what I'm saying about girls is mostly going to be true. So if we're being held to this standard, and then we start to develop difficulties even in a healthy family, if it's misunderstood, it's going to look like defiance. It's going to look like you're just being difficult. You're not following instructions. Now, in a narcissistic family, this is intolerable. So girls start masking. We start, this is what I did, is that the way that it's been explained to me, is I essentially forced myself to behave like a neurotypical to stay safe. That was how I survived my family system. It's how I survived bullying at school. It's how I survived some of the abusive relationships I was in, because I was aware of my differences, but I internalized that there was something wrong with me. So I learned to mirror neurotypical people. I would like adapt my behavior the best that I could to survive. But in the process, I completely abandoned myself.
Now, did you have any special interests, and did you stim at all? That's what I'd like to hear about.
Yeah. So apparently, I have hyper focused since I was a very small child. Like my mom now, because like my mom knows, and she's very accepting. She said it like, oh, the puzzle pieces went into place, which is kind of funny because I'm going to talk about a puzzle. I had this Bert and Ernie puzzle that apparently was way off the charts for my skill set. Like I was, 13, 14 months old, and I could put it all together in, a couple of seconds, and other parents would just come over and be like, oh my God. But she said, yeah, like you fixated on one puzzle, you fixated on one book, you wanted me. And I know kids do that generally speaking, but she said it was to the point that I couldn't even read, and I could read the whole book to you because I'd memorized it. So I would get focused on subjects that I cared about, and this would happen in school too. And I would become like a little mini expert. And then I would abandon the subjects that I just didn't give a shit about. So my parents would get irritated with this like constant conversation of whatever it was the flavor of the month. But then the teacher's like, now Kelly is falling behind in her reading comprehension. So they would get focused on that one subject and ignore the fact that I was brilliant in like creative writing and all these other things. Right. So, yeah.
And was there anything like stimming that you did?
Apparently, yes. So my report card in the 3rd grade, discussed the fact that I had difficulty sitting still, and apparently I'd have to see it, but I did something in my desk that was like, kind of like I'm on a playing chair from IKEA, but it was kind of like I wanted to rock in my desk because I was overstimulated internally. And it was like, I'll be honest, like I'm a teacher. I've taught in a classroom. It was fucking disruptive. It's like this kid's like moving their desk, and I didn't even know that I was doing it. And so any kind of stimming behavior that I might have developed early on, I'll just be like really transparent in this live. Like I got to the point of like some self-harming behavior. Like I would, like my therapist is like, don't do that. But I would like slap my own hand. Like if I found myself doing certain things that just, they were weird, like kids thought it was weird. And so I would like do this, like, what are you doing? Nothing. Like I thought I was just a fucking freak.
I see. I get you.
Yeah.
Now, and here's the other thing. How did this all relate to having a narcissistic parent too? How is that interaction between having a narcissistic kid, or excuse me, an autistic kid with a narcissistic parent? Because I'm sure that presented some unique things.
Well, sure. Well, what's so interesting is that my narcissistic parent, my relationship with him in the early years. So remember I said like really easygoing, super hyperverbal, very well behaved. He's not dealing with a kid that's, peeing on the floor, easy peasy breezy. So for him, from a supply perspective and like a conflict perspective, I was a dream come true. As I started to age and there were different needs, there were he started to lose his patience. So that was when the like, I'm the problem slowly started to develop. And then, my grandmother was always in there too. So that was her own issue. But with my mom is a very physical, like she's very like cuddly. She's like that kind of a mother. And so as a child, one of the things that she confessed to me before I even found out about the autism was she said, it was really hard for me to connect with you. It was easy for your dad because your dad would just joke around with you. Your dad would, like play you music that you liked and things like that. Whereas my mom wanted to hold me close to her and have that kind of closeness. And as an autistic child, I was like, So she didn't know how to connect with me on that, like in that depth, that place of depth. So when my brother came along, he was super easy baby. I wasn't. I had colic. I screamed. He was very cuddly. My mom and my brother were securely attached probably within the first 8 seconds of him being born. So as I aged, I was already not securely attached with my mother, just nobody's fault. And then the attachment that I had with my dad, it was like, as a kid, I was like, I'm slowly drifting away from my parents. My grandmother's now here all the time, and she's telling me all the reasons why I'm a difficult, useless child. So I started to internalize that. I was like, I'm different and I don't know why, but I'm not loved. I'm not approved of.
I know, like my parents would really get mad at me for how I used to stim. Like I would fiddle with my nose, and they would lose their minds about it because it just appeared like a bad habit. And there
Mhm.
was just something about the compulsion of doing it. I just couldn't stop it. And I think it's also about stimulation too, right? They're trying to just trying to regulate yourself and calm down.
Yep.
And then it would be a never-ending cycle where they'd like get stressed at me for doing it, like stop that, stop that, stop that. And then it would make it harder for me to not do it. So that was a point of contention for sure. And what you also had me thinking of there, how were your relationships with other girls growing up? How did that show up in your life with that?
Relationships with girls from the time I was little has been very consistent throughout the course of my life. Women either and it is very much this black and white, if I'm being completely honest, and this is apparently common. They either latched onto me like I was a drug, like we were inseparable, we did everything together. The world shall orbit them, because I give people a lot of attention. Like I just like if I think I have a connection with you and there's like that mirroring component, like I will talk to you. Like you can talk to me till the end of the earth and I will continue responding. And like if there's depth. And so even as a little girl, because I was very imaginative, like kids would always come over because I always had like the most dramatic Barbie
Hmm.
stories all lined up. So girls would attach to me and I would be very much like, yay, like that's a stimming thing I do. I clap a lot. So I'd be like, yay, like I have a friend. And I would feel very excited. And then generally what would happen is slowly over time, it was like they would phase me out and I didn't know where the shift had happened. And so because I was this autistic child with also like this trauma undertone, already believing that I'm the issue in my family, I would start to work harder to maintain the connection with them. Which I guess, for more neurotypical kids, it just became like kind of overwhelming and desperate and like too intense. And so eventually, like the relationship would fizzle out. So I'd have that, or girls just cannot fucking stand me. Like no, like I swear to God, I can walk into a room with women and women are either instantly all like they want to talk to me and we get excited, or it's like you would think that I like stepped in dog shit or something. Like they don't want to come near me. And so I notice it, right? Because I'm hyper vigilant from the trauma. And so I'm aware that this person is standoffish, that they maybe don't like me. And before I really processed trauma and my scapegoat wounds, I would not just radically accept, like, oh, I guess she just doesn't really like me. I would then try harder, like, oh, if I just like say something different to her, or if I like offer her some chips, or like it was just kind of it's kind of sad, really.
I
So I've
see.
always felt misunderstood.
Well, how about this? The ones that were really attached to you, was there a pattern with them? Were they the ones, were they maybe more on the narcissistic side in a way, or they were just, so they were. So maybe you could talk about that.
Yes. So one of the very upsetting things that I learned, because obviously once I learned, because I'm autistic, I hyper focused on learning about all the things right away, like obviously. So there were some things that I learned that were really validating, and there were some things that I learned that were deeply upsetting. And this being one that autistic people, because of our literalness, we actually cannot very easily identify the difference between a person who's mirroring us, genuinely speaking, in a healthy way because they really like us, they're really interested, they're feeling like seen, heard, understood, versus the person who is mirroring you because they're either a predator or they are gathering information to weaponize against you later, or they're just covertly vindictive. We can't very easily tell the difference. And so that played a huge role in my, I was very trusting. I was very naive. I don't have ulterior motives like people with NPD. So I would never think that other people would have ulterior motives. So I would go into this conversation thinking, oh, wow, like they really like Disney and they really like rainbows and they really like, and I would think that I'd found a friend, and it would be the very things that they sucked me in with that they would slowly, I call it a simmer. It's like they would start to turn the simmer on the pot on, where it's like just little digs, little criticisms, little rejections, little things that you feel. You can't name it as an autistic person, but you feel it. And you also don't necessarily say anything because you feel like if you say something, you're just going to look like you don't trust yourself. And then they kind of continue to escalate. And then eventually, either they phase you out or you do finally react. And it's, oh my God, you are so weird. I don't want to talk to you anymore. And you're left like, I don't understand. At the start, we were talking about Disney and now you think I'm a loser. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that's just their ridiculousness. Now, I mean, could we talk about the ulterior motives of a romantic relationship? But we don't normally talk about the ulterior motives of a platonic friendship or a same-sex friendship.
Right.
And what are those ulterior motives? And I guess some of that depends, right? Sometimes it could be like financial favors, or sometimes it could be connections. But in your case, what was it?
Well, that's a really interesting question. And I actually just did a video the other day on the covert female narcissistic friendship because, we talk about the ulterior motives and the mirroring in the romantic relationship. And there's that other layer, right, of like the financial control and and honestly, like the physical intimacy side of things, right? Like it adds these other layers. Whereas, I'm not saying that this doesn't happen, but for the most part, in your friendships, you're not getting into the same type of intimacy that you would in a romantic relationship. Like you're not necessarily thinking about living together. Like I'm not saying that doesn't always happen, but those parts are generally missing. So in the romantic relationship, when they're mirroring and having ulterior motives, like they're gonna look at your interests to an extent, but it's also gonna be like, what are the things that this person wants to hear about who they are, how they look, that they're different from everyone else? Like, the playbook. But in a female friendship, especially, the emotional side of it, that desperation for the depth and the connection, when you have a girl, that comes in and really seems to understand you and understand your ways of feeling and thinking and behaving. And they remember these really kind of strange details about, this thing that your cat did that one day, or that you really like to put ketchup on your macaroni, but you don't want anybody to know about it. Like they gather those little pieces of information and it's like they keep it in a box. And then slowly over time, they open up the box and then they use that information from like an ulterior motive perspective. So the thing that they like, just going back to the macaroni and the ketchup, because some people think that's really gross. If you've been told your whole life that that's gross and you believe that, and you have this friend that now has connected with you on something as simple as that, and all of a sudden on a Tuesday, you're in a group of people, you're talking about food, and all of a sudden she says, yeah, you want to know what? Kelly's such a fucking weirdo. She likes ketchup on her macaroni. And you are heartbroken. You're humiliated. You don't know why she would do something like this. And for you to react in front of this group of girls, you end up looking like the one with the disproportionate reaction. So you laugh it off. You don't really get if it's supposed to be a joke. And so autistic people, we don't we can't figure out what's going on. And it just adds to that like shame of not being included in what's happening. And it's very damaging. Very.
Right. I mean, especially, I mean, autistic people, they still have a desire to connect. Like they still want
Yeah.
to be like close with people. And especially if someone doesn't have as many close relationships, when someone is kind of love bombing in a platonic sense like that, that feels really good. And then they're going to flip it around and be cruel about it and say, oh yeah, I'm going to throw this in your face, this thing you opened up to me about that, you know, I thought maybe was weird. I thought you were on board with it. I thought that was cool. I thought you were a safe person. And then to do that in front of everybody. And then I find that also with narcissistic girls in particular, they do enjoy that sometimes, putting other people down in front of other people. That definitely gives them some form of supply. And if you have a reaction, that's even more supply. And it's just pretty obnoxious.
Yep. Well, and you know, they like to be in control, right? So part of that is that my experience is, and it's very confusing because they want you all to themselves. So like they want the world to orbit them through the lens of you, like, because you're the main supply, you're giving them that different layer of empathy and all that. But if you try to have connections with other people, they can be very, very weird about it. They can be very territorial. They can be very controlling. Like they're of course allowed to do whatever they want to do. They're allowed to see whoever they want to see. They're allowed to speak to whoever they want to speak to. But when it comes to you, they get very covertly territorial. And for someone with autism, who's also, you know, comboing with some CPTSD stuff, a lot of us have learned that love is, you know, it comes with harm as well, right? Like love is both, it's the disorganized attachment. Caretaker was both fear and safety. So we are now getting into that, we're tapping into that familiarity piece where we're like, oh, she's just being like this because she cares about me. And it's a very dangerous, slippery slope to go down because you can sense, your intuition says, well, that's really weird. But the trauma that takes place afterwards, we now don't trust our intuition. And autistic people, our intuition, off the charts. So we're now injured in our superpower and we don't trust what we're seeing, which just adds a whole other layer to the, you know, the fuckery.
Sure. Now, what did the covert territorial behaviors look like from the narcissistic girls?
It was, okay, the weirdest thing that I could tell you that ever happened with one girl that I've talked about this on video, and oh my God, the response from girls are like, no, she didn't. I was like, no, she really did. I had a friend who I suspected for a long time was covert. I was like kind of teetering and tottering on it. And she used to insert herself between me and my partner when we were like, if we were just in a group of people, like let's say we're out at a restaurant or we're like at my apartment and he comes up to me and just, you know, nothing super PDA, but just like comes up to me, puts his arms around me and leans in and gives me a kiss. She would insert herself in between us and start trying to make out with me. And I'd be like, oh my God, what are you doing? And then she'd turn around and try and make out with him. And we were always, I think, so shocked. And the people that were watching were so shocked that we just all kind of laughed because it was like, oh, okay, this is just what she does. But it was a enormous boundary violation. Like it was an enormous violation where she was basically saying, you shall not take away what I believe belongs to me when I am here. Like that was kind of the underlying message. And it was something that I started to feel over time too. Like she hated all of my girlfriends. She was always criticizing every single one of my other girlfriends. And I just thought it was very, like there was a pattern of behavior. And I was like, why do you always like, this person is the nicest person in the world. Like one of my good friends, she's quite heavy. And, you know, for me, that's not physical appearance has never been like a bearing on me for having a friendship. I'm about the person and the connection. And she was always bringing up, like, I'll just be honest. She was like, I don't understand why you're friends with a fat person. Like, have you ever looked in the mirror? Like, you're actually attractive. Like, why are you hanging out with a fat person? And I was always like, oh my God, like, why are you saying these things about my friends? And it started to like wear on me, but I didn't trust that there was something like, I know that sounds stupid, but I didn't trust that there was something wrong because when I would kind of, why are you saying that? She'd go, okay, you're so awesome. And I want the best for you. Like, I want the best people for you. And like, this is not the best. This is not a good look for you.
Plausible but untrue explanations for their behavior is what they would say about that. But
Yep.
also, that's also to me more overt. Like that was overtly getting in between you and your boyfriend, and then overtly telling you that why are you friends with this fat person? Like that's in your face. Like that's, but still ridiculous.
Well, and I should have added this part of it, which probably helped. In those particular moments, this person had consumed a large amount of alcohol that like thinned the veil.
Sure.
So it got like, once there was booze, it was easier for this transition. But generally speaking, it was more covert. It was more making me feel really, 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 really important, really loved, really seen, really heard, understood. But subtle digs, really weird things that I couldn't put my finger on, but I could feel it. And this territorial nature around other people that had a piece of my heart. And just the way that she would very overtly, as you say, put them down so viciously. And I was like, I could understand if these people did something bad to me, but like a person's dress size, that's not relevant to the conversation.
Right, right. Now, before we get into like the romantic relationships with you as an autistic person, how about this though first? What was the experience like as an autistic person as the scapegoat? Because that probably adds another layer to it too, growing up.
Yes. Well, as I explained earlier to you, for me, what's helped me to understand it the best is that autism is like my primary operating system, right? Like if we look at it like a computer, so everything that I like do, think, feel, behave, it's through that lens. And then CPTSD came later. So it, sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. Can you re-ask the question?
What the experience was as a person with autism and the scapegoat.
You. Sorry, sometimes this happens to me. Yeah, so because that was my baseline operating system, and then we're adding in this, you know, as I'm aging, the traumas creeping in, it added this extra layer to feeling like the problem, being told that I was the problem, you know, feeling like I had to, like, I know exactly when it happened. Like it's actually in my book. It's discreetly written for the reader, but I talk about the very moment that I realized, not realized here, but like nervous system wise, that I was being treated differently. And it was because I had abilities that my parents weren't too keen on understanding or being a part of. And so instead of being honest about that or whatever, they dismissed it and basically told me that there was something wrong with me. And I mean, when you're 3 or 4 years old, you believe your parent. You believe what your parent says. So I slowly started to be treated differently. I was being punished for things that I really had no control over at the end of the day. I just felt like I was an inadequate person. So part of my wounding is that I worked really hard to be a neurotypical. Like I tried to figure out, I wouldn't have had that language, of course, at the time, but I started to like, it's like, okay, what do my parents want me to be? How do they want me to think? How do they want me to behave? And then like, let's watch my brother do that. And then like, let's watch other kids do that. And then maybe I can do that. And then it'll be okay. Right? Like that was kind of my way of thinking. And it kept me safer in a sense, but it didn't prevent the scapegoating. And really, like, I started abandoning myself and betraying myself when I was, 5, 6, 7 years old. Bad.
And who did you have to be for your parents to love you?
Well, I had to be an agreeable, not overly talkative child that didn't, because scapegoats and autistic people see the truth, right? We see things very clearly and we don't really conform. Like that's part of our systemic erasure, right? Like nobody likes the person that doesn't want to conform to the person that wants to be in control. So I would see things that I didn't think were fair. And I'm not talking just like, it's not fair that I have to eat my broccoli. Like I'm talking like real things that I could see patterns of, it was not adding up to me. And so I would speak up about it and it would make them angry because it wasn't just that they were impatient. It was, my grandmother always used to say, I'm the one in charge. Like, she wanted to be in control. And anything that I did that would threaten that control, that was no good. So I couldn't be the curious little girl that asked, like, how does this work? Why does the toast pop out of the toaster? Why is the toast brown now? Like I drove them nuts. It was like, can you just shut the hell up? So I had to stop thinking, at that speed. I talk at that speed too. And I just had to kind of, I don't know, like I had to zone out on like writing in diaries. Like that was how I dealt. Like I have a briefcase of diaries that I started when I was 8 years old because that was the only way that I could get my feelings and thoughts out because they were rejected for the most part.
Who did you feel safest with in the family?
In my immediate family or just family as a whole?
Both.
My mother was the person that I felt the safest with. She was the one that, and of course she was the enabling parent, right? So it was this very, very confusing dynamic. And I talk about this in my book. It was like, she was the parent that was always just out of reach. So it was like, she could be in the room, she could hear everything that was going on, and she would just disappear up to the bathtub into her book. And so I was like, where are you going? Like, why are you leaving me here? But my mother was calm. She was empathetic. Well, not was, she is. She's alive. She's alive and well. She's thoughtful. She's sweet. And I always felt like I felt that. So I was, if I just do it differently, then I can get my mom, like my mom's going to come and rescue me. And she didn't. Right. So I probably worked the hardest for her, but as a whole in my family, there was one person who truly saw me authentically, from the get-go. She was the person that, even at my birthdays and stuff like that, like my birthday cards, she always, like, she would, very creative. She'd make me a card with pictures of me and a poem. And she'd say always like, your talent, your creativity, your personality, like it means this is what matters. It was my aunt, the one that died from Parkinson's and MS. She was the one that I lost a couple years ago. So she always saw the real Kelly. So now I live my life a lot more authentically, kind of in honor of her sometimes, because she saw the real me. So yeah.
That was great and magical to have people like that in your life, the people that just help you to be the most you can be, right? And it always reminds me of my favorite definition of a soulmate is from the show 6 Feet Under, where he says, this woman rabbi says to the guy, Nate, because Nate asked her, what's your definition of a soulmate? And she says, it's the person that helps you to become the most you can be and forces you to grow the most as a person,
Wow.
keeping in mind that not all growth is comfortable. But
Yeah.
those people that are like your aunt, there's usually very similar components that they have. And those are the things that I try to remember. There was an uncle that I had with something, he was very similar to that. And one thing they are is they're very accepting. Like they don't try to control you and change you. They're fun to be around, and they just have an energy that it's safe to be you with them. And part of it is they're so comfortable being themselves as well. And that's also part of it, right? They're just them. No matter what, no matter where they are, they're going to be them. And so they kind of give people the permission to also be themselves. And then they're not going to like judge you or rip you for being you. There's just this very pleasant energy they have in comparison to a narcissistic parent, in comparison to that whole dysfunctional family dynamic where there is no emotional safety, which leads to disconnection, which leads to just this icky walking on eggshells feeling, right? It's not even comparable.
No. Well, and you nailed it. Like my aunt was, oh my God, like I don't say this lightly. If this is a little 90s reference. If you looked up authentic in the dictionary, her picture would be next to it. Like, but for real, like Trudy, it encompassed everything that I believe is authenticity. She was quirky. She was silly. The woman was extraordinary. She was a professional violinist. She traveled all over the world. This is before our time, but she played with the James Last Band, very famous band in the 70s. She toured with him. She was a first violinist in the Victoria Symphony. She was a violin teacher. She really showed up for kids and people and just made everybody smile. But I do know that part of her story, being from a narcissistic family and being the mascot in her family, that I think my aunt had a lot of pain. I think she had a lot of pain. I think she learned to manage that pain and her anxiety by making people laugh. And I don't say that was not an authentic part of her, but I think beyond that veil, she didn't always get the opportunity to be her imperfect self with her pain and her suffering and, not being the silly person in the room and not being the professional violinist. And so her husband, who she married in 2008, and he, saw her through to the end of her life and was very supportive of her. I think he saw all of her. He saw all of her painful parts, because after she passed away, he said at a dinner one night, he said, Trudy was amazing, but she had a lot of pain that you guys didn't know about. And it was the first time that I was like, I knew it. Like I knew it in my heart and my soul. And I said to my therapist, I said, is that like because of my knowledge in the narcissistic family stuff? And she goes, well, sort of, but it's really your autistic intuition. You're very attuned to people, and you see patterns that other people don't see. And I'm not talking like we see a pattern, it's like, oh, look, there's a pattern of colors on the wall. We feel it. Like we feel it in our nervous system in a way that neurotypical people would just be like, oh, what? I don't know what you're talking about. And it's not to say that neurotypical people, we have strengths that they don't have. And we have weaknesses that they don't have. Like there are challenges that we experience that are really, 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 really hard that a neurotypical person doesn't even, it wouldn't even be on their radar.
Well, you made me think of a few things here. So one, I mean, your Aunt Trudy was her name. Yeah, she's probably very happy to know the impact that she's had on your life, which reminds me, have you ever seen the Mr. Rogers acceptance speech where he talks about this very topic? It's a bit.
Oh, yes.
So he talks about in front of all like the soap opera stars, right? He says, for 10 seconds, think about someone that helped you to be like who you are today and helped you to become the person you are. So people thought he was joking, right? Because it's Mr. Rogers. They're like, oh, it's Mr. Rogers. We don't need to take him seriously. But he was serious. And he's like, yeah, I'll watch the time. And then within like 5 seconds, people start crying because they start really thinking about the person that helped them to become who they are. So the way you're talking about her reminded me of that. So she's been that kind of person for you. And then the other thing you said that reminded me of this is what I was looking for. There's that book I was telling you about, And the Mountains Echoed by Khaled Hosseini. And he says, yeah. I now know that some people feel unhappiness the way others love, privately, intensely, and without recourse. Like that.
Yeah. Wow. That lands.
So there are a lot of people like that, whether it's Robin Williams, whether it's fill in the blank with whomever else. But yeah, they feel that. And then they mask. I mean, and that's where people that are depressed, they'll mask like that too, right? It's not just people who are autistic or ADHD. There's many versions of a mask out there that are reasons why people have to mask up.
Oh, well, and that's just it, right? Like I started masking very early, and it was really sadly to survive what was going on, right? Like it was if I shut those parts of me down or figured out how to do it, then I was in theory safer growing up in a narcissistic family. And that's a huge part of the trauma that gets very complicated as I'm now learning because, as like I've been in EMDR, and I did DBT first, and then I went into EMDR, and I've been doing that for a long time, but we incorporated internal family systems into the work, and it's been life-changing. Oh my God, EMDR with IFS together, guys. If you have complex trauma, this is like the holy grail. But what's really interesting is that people with complex PTSD, we don't have an unstable sense of self like somebody with BPD, and we don't have a false sense of self like somebody with NPD, but we do have a fragmented sense of self. So if you think about fragments, for those of you that are familiar with Harry Potter, literally think about your parts, traumas that were so severe as you were growing up, like Horcruxes. So it's literally parts of you, your authentic self, that got lost in space. And some of those parts, for someone like myself, maybe even yourself, Jared, is that it's not just the trauma itself, it's the autistic part attached to the trauma that we exiled, that's a real part of who our authentic self is, in order to survive that traumatic abusive situation. So it's a twofold thing now. Like I'm not just processing trauma so that I can locate that part. It's also which autistic quality or part of me did I shut down in that moment in order to survive, whether it's, sensory stuff. It could be something as simple as, overwhelming sensory. We get to a breaking point. We get overwhelmed. The parent lashes out. We are, abused, whether it's verbally, emotionally, physically. And so now not only are we carrying the trauma from that circumstance, the reason that we had the reaction in the first place was something neurodevelopmentally that we had no control over. Like that's deep damage.
I get it. I totally get that. Because I mean, for a long time in my own life, I was trying to figure out what the problem was. And there was many other problems besides that. if you even want to call it a problem, right? The autism and just having a different, like a processing brain. But I just didn't realize, I didn't realize because that was my normal. And when that's your normal, you don't even have the words to articulate that something might be wrong. Like, oh
No.
yeah. Because if you have like my version was severe anxiety. I just didn't know that's what it was. I thought, oh, everyone's like this. And it wasn't really until drugs and alcohol came into play that I realized, oh yeah, this is why I like those so much, because whatever that awful feeling I have normally is, now it's gone. I can actually feel like myself. I can talk clearly. I can feel confident and assertive, all of the things that I normally wasn't. And you also had me thinking, and we'll circle back to that too, put a pin in that, but your undiagnosed autism, some people would say it can look very similar to BPD. And some people used to think that's also what it could turn into. Like undiagnosed autism could turn into borderline. But for you, what did it look like in your life? What did you think it was before you realized it was autism?
Oh God. Well, so on like for real, I until I was honestly until I was 18 years old, and I say 18 years old to the day because my first panic attack was on my 18th birthday. So I presented to the ER, like genuinely thought I was dying. For real. This was not, oh, I'm kind of sketched out. I mean, y'all know if you've had one. It's a scary time. So I present to the ER, I'm completely freaking out. And eventually I was told that, this is what you have. And I was diagnosed with a generalized anxiety disorder. Okay. So here I am thinking, okay, so I guess what this means is I'm just like this really anxious person.
Hmm.
But before that, I didn't have language around anxiety. I didn't think in those terms. I just knew, and this is where the alexithymia comes in for autistic people, is that we struggle to say or identify how we feel. Like it's a real thing. We know something's wrong, but we don't know what it is. And so I couldn't identify with that at all. And so as a child and then going into teen years, I genuinely just thought, like, and I'm being real, I just thought I was fucked up. Like I thought I was dramatic. I thought I was theatrical. I wouldn't have had this language in 1996 when I was 14. I thought probably what I thought is that I was histrionic, that I was looking for attention. I don't even know. I wanted, I had daddy issues or something. Like I had this myriad of narratives that were all very, very cruel to myself. Like they were not externalizing blame to other people. It was all, I am dramatic, I am useless, I'm all these terrible things. And then when I got the generalized anxiety disorder, it was like a little piece of the puzzle, but not really. And then I told you after, I've told you this before, after in the midst of me getting that diagnosis, because my family told me that I was making it up for attention. That was really neat. My boyfriend's mother at the time, she was a school teacher who also had a generalized anxiety disorder. She was taking Xanax. And so my boyfriend told his mother what my family had said. And oh my God, like the woman saw red. I'd never experienced this as a child, like a parent that's not even my parents. And she was like, you are not going to live there. You are going to come and live here. Like all my other kids are out of the house. My guy was youngest of 4. So the other 3, they were already out of the house. And she said, you can live here. And I learned what it was like to be part of a securely attached family. And it was life altering for me for a long time. Like I think it leveled some things out for a period of time. And I felt more normal. And then over time, things just got more difficult, but I masked. I was like, oh, I can do it. I can be the stereotypical. And then when my first husband brutally discarded me after a lot of very serious things. I went through an autistic collapse. And so it was after a TBI too. So that was part of what caused it. My nervous system said, I'm all done. I am all done. I cannot mask. I cannot fake. I am not neurotypical. I do not have any spoons left. I am going to die if somebody doesn't do something. So people finally started paying attention. My family was like, oh my God, this is real. Like I was really thin. It was alarming. And so then I got the CPTSD diagnosis and I was like, oh my God, that's what it is. And so for several years, I was coasting a train where I was like, okay, I've got CPTSD. And apparently I have some borderline traits that color my perceptions. And I've got a dissociative disorder. And my idea was, okay, I'm just going to do all the things. I'm going to do the DBT and I'm going to do the EMDR and I'm going to process and I'm going to be amazing because I'm super motivated and I'm going to hyper focus and it's all going to get better. And that was the clue because my therapist finally went, hold on. We are processing trauma at rapid rates. Kelly is now in what's called self-led integration, which literally is the holy grail of CPTSD. If you get to self-led integration, you're doing it right. So in theory, think of it like a person who's walking towards the cure, and the autistic traits, the operating system, they got louder. So as the trauma turned down, those autistic traits, the sensory, the hyper focus, the pattern recognition, the literal thinking, the black and white thinking, the pop culture stuff, that authentic part of me started to like become alive. And my therapist went, oh my God, we missed this. So she wrestled with it. She said for 2 years, she thought she was nuts. She's like, oh, I don't think I'm right. And then she brought it up.
2 years is a long time.
2 years. She wrestled. She was like, no, I think I'm wrong. I did get diagnosed with ADHD at the start of 2023. So that was a piece of the puzzle. And even the person that diagnosed me with ADHD, he said, I am sure you have this, but there's something else. And that was the key. There's something else. So once we did all the diagnostic testing, right? Like the rat, all the CAT-Q, blah, 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 blah. And what I did was, and I had to be at the self-led integration space from a CPTSD perspective to do it, which is kind of interesting. So I took those tests without the masking. So if you were not wearing a mask, if you're not, your trauma brain is not turned on, you're not thinking about contorting, you're not thinking you're the problem, you're trusting your reality, how do you answer these questions? And I was off the charts for like every single diagnostic test that there is. We spent, this was in March that we started. And so we kind of landed, we landed on the moon kind of in the start of the summer. And since that point, I've been doing treatment differently. We're doing it through the lens of autism as opposed to just CPTSD. And I'm starting to relearn how to live in the world as a I call myself a neurosparkly person in all my muchness. Because, a lot of people say that we're too much. And I'm learning how to maneuver the world as an authentic autistic woman and loving myself, even though I'm really freaked out by balloons and I'm really freaked out by certain sounds. And I really don't like it when somebody comes up to me and touches me like this. Like I like hard pressure, like things like that. I'm relearning who Kelly actually is at 43 years old. It's very weird.
Interesting.
Very good.
Now, when you were saying about that family that taught you how to be emotionally safe, how old were you then?
18.
So 18 years old.
Yep.
And then that reminds me, so when your mom would kind of slowly disappear as a kid, and that would happen with your father or your grandmother, when like were they giving you grief at the time, and that's when your mother would kind of like slip out?
Yeah. So my mother is my grandmother is a communal narcissist who very inappropriately inserted herself in my family, with her son being the narcissistic parent in this dynamic. Um, he's the golden child, and there was massive enmeshment. So he was the baby of four. He was 7 years younger than my Aunt Trudy, so he was the baby that kind of wasn't supposed to be. And given the dynamic of like his father disappearing, his father had an affair. And I mean, this was very like taboo in the 60s. Like he had an affair with the lady across the street. He like abandoned my dad and my grandmother. And so they were kind of like a two-man ship. And my father didn't really like developmentally get there. So they were enmeshed. She's communal. She's in control of everything. She was very vindictive, but because of the communal part, she's babysitting us. She's giving us gifts. She's always involved. Like, to say anything, you look like an ungrateful person. My dad had very poor regulation skills. He was, very entitled around like what he expected, like how the world should turn and work. And so the two of them together were like a goddamn nightmare. And my mom, she was the lost child in her family, and lost children, they learn to stay safe by staying out of the way. They're conflict averse and they keep the peace. So I actually did a video on this very recently about the dynamic between the narcissist and the lost child. It's like the Holy Grail relationship. A lot of people think it's the scapegoat. So my mother's automatic wiring in the face of danger is to disappear. It's not malicious. It's not, my mom didn't even know she was doing it. It's her limbic system says, I need to keep myself safe at all costs. This is dangerous. I'm not going to win. So I'm going to disappear. But for a little girl, I don't go, oh, I see. Granny's crazy. Daddy is freaking out. My mommy is scared of both of them. So she disappeared because she can't handle it. A little girl's nervous system goes, I'm being abused and you ran away. No one is here to help me. And I must be getting treated this way because I'm the problem.
And what's an example of how your narcissistic father or your narcissistic grandmother would abuse you, and then she would kind of disappear?
So my grandmother was very much like Mother Gothel, like mommy knows best. So my grandmother had very strong opinions about how things should happen, even though my parents had some ideas about how they wanted to parent. And so my grandmother would insert herself in this way where she would either be verbally abusive. Physically, she hid from them because she knew that that was a big no-no for them. But she would be abusive to me when no one was watching. And because I was the scapegoat and autistic, and I was like, excuse me, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am. No, for real. At 7 years old, I was like, excuse me, ma'am. You're not allowed to do that. And you know what she said to me? She said, well, your parents will just be disappointed with you if you say anything to them because you just lie. Like 7 years old. So like very psychological warfare. And my dad, I have really profound trauma around injuries and illness. So when I was sick as a child, let's say I wake up 2 o'clock in the morning, and what do? You go get your parents, right? I learned to fear going into my parents' room when I was sick because my dad would explode. He would freak out that I woke him up. He would yell, he'd get very combative, and my mom would, come downstairs and be with me and get me set up on the couch and all the things that parents are supposed to do. And I have vivid memories of him like running down the stairs. Like I always remember the sound of the stairs to this day. Running down the stairs and just like looking so angry at me and at my mom, be like, you need to come to bed right now. And he'd do that like to my mom. And then he'd look at me and just be like, I have to go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning. You better shut up. And so here I am, I'm puking, I'm alone. And so I had to learn to take care of myself as a very young child, because the alternative was, okay, well, you're already really scary and you're being pretty scary. I don't know what you're going to do if I can't do what you want me to do, or I go against you. And I would learn very quickly that if I didn't do what he wanted, it would escalate. Sometimes they would throw me in my room. I had a lock on the outside of my door. They'd lock me in there. Like there were some pretty screwed up things that would happen. So I learned to contort like a good little girl as much as I could.
And you also had me thinking there too about how a lot of people that grew up in a dysfunctional family like that, there's certain noises that when they hear it, it can transport them right back. For some people, it's people like climbing the stairs, like walking up the stairs. For some people, it's the garage door opening or the front door opening. But what else was it for you?
Oh, yeah, the sound of the stairs, I don't like. Doors actually freak me out too, which I think kind of like doubled up with my days with one Peggle. Like the door was always okay, they're home. Even the sound of the car could be, like if I knew he was coming home and I was, he was in a mood, like, and the thing is, like my dad was not like that 100% of the time, right? Like obviously, like he could be very loving, he could be very fun, like he was a very supportive father. He was the father that was at every baseball game, every recital, which for me caused dissonance, right? Because I was like, hold on a minute, like this is happening, but then you also do this. So the car was scary, stairs were scary, keys and doors, any loud sound too. Like if I hear like, something like that, to me, that usually alerts like they're angry. And then I have to like scan and assess and pivot and like figure out what to do. Ugh.
Right. I mean, and in situations like that too, it's not about what the parents say. It's not even about what they do. It's really about how they make you feel, because they can say all of the right things a lot of times, but if it doesn't feel emotionally safe, they can say they love you. They can say, oh, you can tell me anything, Kelly. You can trust me. But if you don't feel that, then there's going to be some dissonance. There's not going to be a congruence there.
100%. Yep. I've said that. People like, I mean, I don't know how much I know you see a fair amount of my content, but I do a lot of stuff on the family, right? And I do like weird deep dives at the request of people. Like, people ask me like, talk about this and talk about that. And what? Thank you. People have asked me like, tell me about how the grandparent, why does the grandparent treat the golden children's kids different? Like, stuff like that. Right. And one of the videos, because you reminded me with what you said, was I talked about with the grandkids of the scapegoat, the assumption would be, oh, scapegoat's kids, they're going to be rejected. Well, not necessarily. For any narcissist, whether you're in the relationship or you're the kids, like they don't see you as a person with feelings, needs, emotions. Like you don't have an identity to them. They look at you like, what purpose do you serve? That's why we get like put into roles, right? So whatever purpose you serve is how they're going to treat you. So those scapegoat grandchildren, if they serve a purpose for their image, like let's say Narc Granny is an avid golfer. She's out every Saturday and Sunday. She's like, ripping it up. And now scapegoats, grandkid, like the grandkid is interested in golf and they have a skill. Well, guess what? They're going to go under our granny's wing. But very often what you see with the scapegoats kids is it's not necessarily what the grandparent does, because they don't do anything super overt and they don't even say anything super overt necessarily. It's pretty covert. It's how they make the kids feel. So it might be like, if you and I are grandkids of a narcissist, like your dad is the golden child and mine is the scapegoat, right? And we're sitting together at Christmas and Granny's like, oh, Jared, I want you and Kelly to open your presents next to each other. And you wanted this like gaming system. You're like, I wanted the new Nintendo and I wanted the same thing. And you open up the Nintendo game system and I get like a handheld something that's not the same, but it's like just enough that I feel that difference. But if I imagine I've just been given a gift, if I speak up at Christmas and say, hey, how come Jared got a Nintendo? Well, then I look like an ungrateful little child. So you don't say anything because you really think that if you said something, you are ungrateful. And that's part of the psychological warfare. They do stuff like that on purpose. It's to mess with your head. And then they watch and it's so nasty. Ugh.
Yeah. And like when I was talking to Christian, he had said the scapegoat is like the receptacle for all the feelings the family can't feel. So they're like kind of a toilet in that way.
Yep.
But taking it back from the top. So your grandmother, she basically parentified your father, and there was enmeshment there. You could also call this emotional incest. And it makes it interesting for people because normally you would think, well, then the guy wouldn't be narcissistic, but that's not how it goes, right? They can both be narcissistic. And then your mother, maybe this was a dynamic with your father that she was familiar with for whatever reason with
100%.
her family. I don't know. Because I actually don't know about your mother's upbringing as much, but was that familiar for her?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So my mother, as I said, she was the lost child. She also came from a narcissistic family. Different dynamics, obviously, but a very, her father was very covert. So he was a very quiet, unassuming man, like sat in the corner, read his book, didn't really say boo. He treated my Nana like gold. Like this was not a physically abusive, he was not like a wife beating type. Loved my Nana, doted on my Nana. And my mom was the only girl. So there was this special dynamic in that she was the only girl and she was the baby. So in his quietness, he was, from what I understand, very frightening because he had a violent temper. And he really unleashed that temper on my uncle, my mom's oldest brother, who was the scapegoat. So he was born premature. He had a lot of challenges as a baby. He was brilliant. I actually think he was autistic. He was brilliant, very quirky, very verbal. Like he didn't understand like social cues and certain things, but off the charts brilliance. But he was the kid, just like me, that asked questions. Well, how come this? Well, why are you doing that? And it made my papa snap. And so he would literally beat the shit out of him. And my mom said it was terror. Like it was traumatizing. It was terrifying for her. He never treated her like that. But part of her wiring in watching that as a small child was that could happen to me. So as long as I'm in my good graces, as long as I'm being well behaved, I stay out of the way and I keep safe. So my mother she was brilliant. She was an overachiever. She graduated early. She was a straight A student. off the charts, but her scapegoat brother was brutally abused. The brother below him, he's the golden child. And it's really interesting how these dynamics work in the family, because even though he watched the same abusive behavior, he saw it all. He vehemently denies that there was any abuse in the family. He's like, oh, my brother just spoke up too much, and he got what he deserved, and spare the rod, spoil the child. Like, you guys are all overreactive. Like, this was the same uncle that was so cruel. Like, I don't really speak to him. He was so cruel to me when my ex-husband discarded me. Like, he basically said that it was ridiculous, and my mom was like, she was literally admitted to psychiatric emerge. She's lost 40 pounds. Like, she's sick. Like, what are you talking about? And he has this opinion that only war veterans, because he was in the Vietnam War, only war veterans can have trauma and PTSD. There's no such thing as trauma in childhood. There's no such thing. Like, he doesn't even think that you can have trauma from a car accident. And I was like, bro. And then her other brother, he was the mascot. Guy disappeared off the face of the earth. We don't even know where he is. We think he's somewhere in California. We never hear from him. He's completely no contact with the family. And I'm like, I wonder why.
George had said that in terms of the scapegoat, his light irritated the other people's demons. So especially, I guess, his father there.
Yeah. Yep.
And also, as you get older, you begin to understand sometimes the people that take a break from the family or step away from the family. It's like, oh, now I can see why in these dynamics, right? You see, they just didn't want any part of the toxicity anymore. And I guess with your mother, did she feel like she was in competition with your grandmother for your father's attention? Because that's a triangulation that happens all of the time.
Yes, I think that it was less about the competition, emotionally speaking, that way. It was really more about the parenting front. Like, it was, like my grandmother was very, just not, I don't know how to explain it, but like my grandmother wasn't the one that was going up to my dad and being like, oh, like getting close to him and being weird like that. Like, there was none of that crap. It was, she wanted to be in control. And so in that control, she was the instructor. She was the drill sergeant of the house. And because of my father's enmeshment with her and like wanting to please her, he would align with her and be like, oh, my mom was she's communal, right? So she's an ECE, or early childhood educator. She's a churchgoer. She was a nurse in training. So my dad invested in this idea that she was the expert. And my mother also kind of invested in that idea and didn't make waves. She didn't stand up for herself because lost child. But I can tell you now, I'm 43, she's 73 now. I think if she could do it over again, I think she would have, if she had the wiring and she had the knowledge, she would have stepped in more, because she did see what was happening sometimes. Her experience was more the interference between her and I. So like, as opposed to my grandmother and my dad, like my mom and my dad having separation, it was really more about my grandmother not wanting my mom and I to connect, like that female mother-daughter relationship, because of her own wounds. So she worked very hard to like keep us separated.
So when your mother would kind of like slowly disappear, how did you deal with that? Did you develop any kind of resentment towards her for that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, not until later. As a small child, I'm a little kid. I internalized it. I was really sad. I remember there was this, you guys will learn more about this in my book. There was this green panel on the side of our house. And when I was 7 years old, I used to go out into the yard and stand there because it was on the side of the house. And I used to stare up at the panel. And I was like, I think that behind that panel is Rainbow Brightland. And if I can go to Rainbow Brightland, then I'm going to be safe, because I just thought I didn't belong. And so that was how I, dealt with the trauma. I daydreamed and internalized and dissociated. But once I got to be a teenager, I started to figure out, this is fucked up. Like this is really messed up. And I started to feel intense anger for my family, because I thought, why the hell are you guys treating me so different? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But I didn't get it in 1996. I mean, Christ, I'm an educator and I could tell you all the reasons why it happened. I still don't totally get it, but you know what I mean?
I mean, because people back then, they didn't think of the spectrum of autism. People used to think back then that, oh, if you're nonverbal, maybe you're autistic, or maybe if you're constantly flapping all the time, maybe then you're autistic. But they didn't have this idea that there was the spectrum and there could be less severe versions of it. So a lot of times it just went under the radar. So people didn't even pick up on it at all. And I think the other interesting thing is with your dad and his mother, like, you think of a narcissistic person and you think of control, right? But with your dad, he seemed okay letting his mother have the control. Like, usually you think of a dominance dispute, but it also goes to show you they can sometimes have the hierarchy in their heads where he deferred, I guess, to her. He wanted her approval. He wanted that love and affection from her that he was probably chasing his whole life, because narcissistic parents make their children earn love. So, but it's interesting to note that dynamic, right? That they're not that way with everyone, because I bet your father would be very controlling in every other aspect. With other relationships and other aspects, sure, but not with his mother.
No, well, and that's 100% true, right? Like, he was controlling. So because she wasn't there 24 hours of the day, 7 days of the week, right? Like, she was there a lot. But when she wasn't there, then he was head of the house. So like the example I gave earlier about me getting sick, those were some telltale examples of the things that could happen. Here's actually a great example of my experience with the control of the father and the grandmother. Any adult would be confused by this, but imagine being a child. So I'm very musical. Music is a huge, my aunt is a professional violinist. My nana was a piano teacher, so I have all the musical genes. So I would come home from school. My grandmother was always there to take care of us, because my dad got home first, and then my mom got home later. So my dad would come home, I don't know, like 4 o'clock. So I'd get home from school. Grandmother would, be in control of everything. Go do this, go do that. Go into your room and practice your violin. Okay. So I go to my room, I take out my violin, I'm practicing my violin. She goes and does what she's doing. Dad comes home, comes in the door, comes to my bedroom. Will you cut that out? Stop making that racket. Now I'm going upstairs to take a nap. Like, just shush. So little kid, put the violin away, go about doing my things. Grandmother comes upstairs. He goes upstairs to take a nap. She comes back up from the laundry room. I'm now not practicing my violin. And she says, why are you not practicing your violin like I told you? And I say, because Dad told me not to. Don't tell lies. Then I would get punished. And I'm standing here as a child thinking, what in the hell am I supposed to do? So she was in control in her own way. And then he was in control in his own way. And the two of them weren't talking to one another. And because they were both gaslighting each other anyways, it was a merry-go-round of nonsense, because she wanted to be in control, so she wouldn't let him be. And then he wanted to be in control, so he wouldn't let her be. And I ended up getting double scapegoated to deal with their own narcissistic rage. Like, it was insane.
And they probably treated your brother differently.
Oh, yes. Golden child. And you know what? I say that like I have some disdain for him. No, to be clear, I get in trouble on TikTok a lot for defending the golden child the way that I do. Like, I talk about their wounding and that they are just as much of a victim as the scapegoat. It's just a different role. But no, my brother was, like I say, my mom had a way easier birth with him. He didn't have colic. He thrived. He was an easy baby. He was really, my brother was adorable. And so he was just really cute and sweet and likable, and he cuddled with everybody, and he was affectionate, and he was just a really easy little boy to deal with. But he also fit the image for my narcissistic grandparent and parent, because he was extraordinarily athletic. So he was, early on, it was like, oh, okay, this kid can hit a baseball, he can hit a golf ball, he can hit a tennis. Like, there's nothing that this kid can't do. I don't know how many of you are familiar with track and field, but, by the time he was, 10 or 11 years old, he's running a 113 seconds. Like, he was fast. We were both fast, but he was extraordinarily talented. And he was easy. He was idolized. He held up the image. So they, he wasn't making a racket on the violin. And my dad's reaction to that was because he had trauma around musical instruments. He got beat up by his piano teacher. So it's like all these little things that he doesn't tell you, but my brother making noise in the yard with a baseball bat and a golf club, that doesn't, like, speaking of like the sounds, like the stairs and the keys, like, so for my father, a baseball bat hitting a ball against a fence, that doesn't trigger him. But the sound of a violin or a piano, that takes him right into his childhood, where he was abused by a person that is supposed to be teaching him piano. So, like, I get it. And I have an explanation for it, but the damage was done here.
It sounds like it. Now, and in your romantic relationships too, do you think narcissists target autistic people?
100 million% yes. 100%. So again, what I discussed earlier in the interview around the, was this in the interview or when we were talking earlier? I can't remember.
Maybe we talked about it in terms of platonic friendships with the narcissistic girls, maybe targeting them. Right.
So with this relationship, obviously there, the love bombing, idolization stage, right? The mirroring. Autistic people cannot tell the difference between someone who is mirroring them because they genuinely are connecting, they really like you, it's real, it's authentic, versus someone who is either predatory or they have ulterior motives. It's the same idea. So we cannot differentiate between the two. Like, our nervous system doesn't see it as a red flag. We like, I swear to God, like, if you put us under an MRI machine when it's happening, you'd probably see like parts of our brain light up where we're like, yay. So if you consider how excited we get around subjects that interest us, and like that ability to like hyper focus and like depth, they can see and feel and smell that like lighting up, and it automatically gives them a type of supply that's like a little richer than a neurotypical person. So they're like, oh, this person they're rich in depth, and oh man, they're vulnerable. They see it as a vulnerability, and we don't clock it. We don't clock it like someone else would and go, I don't get it. Like, they're so interested in this Disney shit. Like, is that genuine? Like, that's not on our radar. So think about from the perspective of a truly narcissistic person, especially the more dangerous ones. Not only are they going to suck you in and get you trauma bonded really, really, really quickly, right? Especially if it's interest that you have been dismissed for, or you've been teased or insulted, and now you're like, oh wow, I'm seen. And then they're going to turn right back around at some point in the future and use that to devalue you. It's extraordinarily damaging for someone with autism, especially since we have that, like, we're so literal, right? Like, we can't, like, I don't know about you, Jared, but sometimes when people tell like certain types of jokes, I totally don't get it. Like they'll tell the joke and like everybody's like, ha, 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 and I'm like, I don't get it. Like, if it's a really literal thing, I can't. And then when someone explains it to me, then I go, oh, I thought you meant da 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 da. Like, I get very literal about things. And so it's little things like that too that they pick up on, so they can tease you or use things against you or mock you, and we don't really get it. So I absolutely think we are way more vulnerable. We're a way bigger target. We have to be a lot more careful.
Yeah, so you remind me of Ralph Wiggins from The Simpsons not getting the jokes around them.
But it's true. It's true. Has somebody ever told a joke and it was like it went right over your head, like a more literal joke, and you were just like, I don't get it? Or do you not have that problem?
I think like I used to a long time ago, but not as much anymore. Like I've learned a social calibration over the years. Now, when it came to some drugs that I would do, if I smoked weed, then all of a sudden I wouldn't get it anymore. I distinctly remember watching Seinfeld, like as a kid, like a teenager, and just not realizing, oh, is this supposed to be funny? Like, what the hell is going on here? Like, because this is something we can talk about too, just how weed can make autistic people really dissociate, or is it disassociate or dissociate?
You can say both, but the proper clinical term is dissociate without the A, but people use both.
So I've heard that a lot with autistic people, is that weed is like really powerful for them, and they like really self-reflect. They beat themselves up. But maybe you could talk about why that happens.
Oh God. Well, like why the drug for us at the start of time was great and then it becomes a nightmare, like that element of it. Oh yeah. So because we are running hot all the time, right? Like the way that I kind of explain it is if you want to understand what it's like to be in a neurodivergent brain, and I'm talking beyond just ADHD because you can have both. Imagine it like we have Google open and we have 32 tabs open at one time, which for a neurotypical person, that would just be crazy. They'd be like, I don't even understand what's going on here. But we are able to tell you what 32 tabs are open for the most part and like a basic gist of what's happening. So that level of stimulation in the brain all the time it's tiring. Like it can be cool. Like when I'm doing a creative project, I enjoy it, but it's tiring. So autistic people and traumatized people specifically, we gravitate towards drugs that compress the central nervous system. So they turn the volume down. We close a couple of tabs. We're like, now there's only 4 tabs open. I can keep track of that. So, you're looking at the booze, and for a lot of people, the marijuana, in the 90s, I wouldn't have had these words like indica and sativa and all that crap, but like, more of an indica, and you're chilling and you're doing the things, like opiates, benzos, blah, 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 like anything that compresses the central nervous system. So for me as a teenager, that drug was just absolutely fantastic. I loved it. It made me kind of silly, but like I was chills. And then around the age of 18, really around the same time that I went to the ER, as I'd said, there was this shift. And it for me, it felt like it happened overnight. I don't know about for you, but it was very weird. And I remember the first time it happened, I thought maybe I got like a bad batch or it was laced, or like I started going through all these like things in my head. And then it started happening subsequent where I was getting insanely paranoid. Like it was not compressing the central nervous system. It was doing the exact opposite. And so for me, it was very easy to stop doing it because I was like, well, this isn't, even though my friends were like, oh my God, you're being such a loser. Why won't you smoke up with us? And I was like, if you took a drug that literally made you freak out and think you were dying, would that be an enjoyable experience for you? Is that something that you aspire to do with your time? And then they'd say, oh, well, no, maybe not. So I stopped. It wasn't hard. And what I learned is that as our brains continue to develop, you got to think about it the same way as like the development of personality disorder. You don't see that in its full form till the prefrontal cortex is developed. Well, you have to look at the same way with an autistic brain because you're still having development happening. And so as you're getting to that, final stage, your operating system at a baseline, we hyper focus. We are able to carry on 16 things at once and keep going. That just is our baseline. Marijuana then shifts somewhere in time where for us, taking that away from us in the way that marijuana works, it doesn't make us calm. It makes us panic because we're now out of control of our mind. We're out of control of our circumstances. Earlier when we were talking about it, you said like you thought it was like kind of like I started to have like a psychedelic experience on it, like hallucinations, out of body experiences, which for some people might be like, that's so fucking cool. For an autistic person, it is terrifying. Right. So I was done with it. I was like, nope. Mm-mm.
Yeah, because for me, it turned on me as well when I was about 18 or 19.
Yeah,
I would just get this like really high introspection that I would beat myself up, think of all the things I wasn't doing right. And sometimes it wasn't wrong though either. So I would see it as a psychedelic experience in a way, like pointing me in the direction of all the things I need to improve. And usually it was about loving better, believe it or not. But it was still like very painful. It would be like, Jared, why are you being a piece of shit in this way? Jared, why are you doing this in that way? And so it became very easy for me to stop, but it was kind of similar to what I hear happens to people when they take ayahuasca. Now, I've done other psychedelics, but I've not done ayahuasca. I've not done ayahuasca. I've done mushrooms. I've done many other things like that, but not the ayahuasca experience. But from what I hear about it, that's similar to what happens with them there. They'll get this connection with, they call it Mother Aya, and they'll say, okay, this is what you need to work on. And I think it's important to have intent going into those things too, because that definitely alters the experience. But learning about just how to be a better person and how to love better. And that's kind of what would happen to me on weed, but it was awful feeling. I would not call it recreational or fun in any way at all. It was really anxiety provoking. I would get really insecure. It was just not pleasant.
No, and that's the thing, right? Like when you combo the autistic brain, especially as we get older, right? And we have more awareness of everything, right? And then you've got trauma on top of it. Like we are wired to like, once we have the experience and we're like, like, whoa, this is what it feels like when my central nervous system calms down a little bit. Like it's, I think for someone like you or I, we are at a way higher risk of becoming and I use the word dependent because I think dependent is different than addicted. For me, addicted is like your body requires it to function, even if it's dysfunctional. Like you're gonna have big problems with withdrawal and all that if you go off the drug. But once we were not getting that central nervous system compression, it's like a nightmare for somebody like you and I. Like that's why we typically like my as you know, my drug that I have to be so careful with and practice the sobriety land is the boozy pops. The boozy pops for me, I actually wrote something that's going to go in my book about it. It's honestly about my relationship with alcohol, with wine specifically, because I like wine. And wine for me, it's not even about getting drunk. Like it's not like, oh my God, I need to get blasted. But it's drinking to the point that you turn down all the noise, like the peripheral noise that's always in your head, that's in your chest or like wherever you hold like trauma and agitation. It just smooths out those edges, and you can kind of sit back and chill and relax, and like those Google tabs like close, and if there's things in the background that are really upsetting you, like you just don't care about them as much. And so I sort of said, in my darkest times as an abuse survivor, like with all the isolation I've gone through with like Peggy and stuff, wine never judged me. It always listened. Mm-hmm. It always sat with me in my worst states. It never told me that I was less than. It never told me that I wasn't attractive enough or that I shouldn't be drinking this because I'm going to gain weight. Like it didn't do any of the things that people do to us, right? And that society does to us. Like I always joke with my friend, people are the trigger, but it's true. So this drug, even though it is completely dysfunctional and it actually makes your central nervous system blast off even worse, like it's a vicious cycle. But in the moment, when you're sitting here with now my sparkling water, but when you're sitting here with your beverage and you feel when it kicks in, it's like your whole system exhales. And that sounds wonderful, but it's very, very, very dangerous for an autistic person, period. But people with complex trauma where we're desperate to feel safe and peaceful and calm, and we don't ever. Like that drug becomes your BFF, man.
Sure. As George just said here too, wine becomes the best friend. Because that's the reason why I would drink too. It would just kind of turn down the noise and all of the overthinking, and it would just help me to relax. But for me, the price became too high just in hangover land, where if it wasn't for that, I'd probably be drinking more. But that was kind of the self-limiting aspect where you're just trading tomorrow's happiness for today. And that trading tomorrow's happiness became longer and longer. So like one drinking day for me would almost be like a day and a half of just not even close to myself anymore. And then even after that, there'd be other mental health symptoms, anxiety, depression, etc. But George also wanted to know, do you know what astral traveling is?
I don't, and
I don't either.
I am instantly, well, okay, so George, by all means, tell us what it is as much as you can in the comments, but I will guarantee you that after this is over, maybe not tonight because I will go to bed, but tomorrow I will hyper focus on what that is, because that sounds very interesting to me.
I think it might be a drug thing. I'm not sure though.
You know what? For me, if you pique my interest, even if I don't know what the hell it is, I go into the rabbit hole.
Astro projection. That's what Jolly says. I don't know what that is either though.
I'm just going to write that down here, please, for a second.
I've heard of astro projection. I think I even heard of astro travel. I just don't know what it is. But circling back to the narcissistic piece, I mean, have you seen a lot of narcissistic people really get enjoyment out of triggering autistic people into a meltdown?
100%. 100%. The way that I see it is that they are able to pick up on the fact, they learn the things that cause us torture, whether it's physically or emotionally, right? Because they love to push boundaries. Like, they love conflict and they love to push boundaries. So in a neurotypical person, that could look like a myriad of things. But for someone like me, you know, as a random example, from a sensory perspective, I cannot stand to be tickled. I cannot stand it. It is like physical torture to me. It actually, I'm sure you can tell by my response, like it actually upsets me. And so I would say to him, you know, like, I don't like that. And like, I really don't like that. And so in the relationship, he figured out, you know, that this was torture. So he would do this thing in the relationship where he would get on me. And this guy is 6'2", 250. Like, I don't stand a chance against him. He would put all of his weight on me. He would start tickling me. He wouldn't stop. And what he ended up conditioning me to do is he would only stop tickling me if I clucked like a chicken. Do you know how humiliating that is? So I would do it. He'd burst out laughing. You know, he this is what he would do to me, and I'd endure it. Well, towards the end of the relationship, I got pushed to a breaking point, right? Like, it was beyond the clucking chicken. It was, you know, I didn't hit him, or I would never do that because I was way too scared to ever retaliate against him. But, you know, I finally just said, well, you like, knock it off. You know, I got angry, and he stormed around. He says, oh, this is how I show love and affection. You know, you're not letting me get close to you. And so they will figure out your physical and emotional triggers till you explode. Like, some people will just do what I did, which is get more verbal. But there are people in the relationship that do get to a point of more physical reactions. And they absolutely provoke you to do that. They love to see it happen so that then they can turn around. Like, I will say, their favorite pastime is this. Every narcissist, they want you to think your reaction to their behavior is the problem, not their behavior. That is, like, if there was a number one rule in their playbook, that's it.
This was Peggy doing this?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it sounds pretty sadistic overall. Like, but that's the enjoyment they get. They love that pain / uncomfortable reaction that they're in charge of. It makes them feel powerful and superior. That's all that is. And then narcissistic people love doing that to autistic people in general, because autistic people can be more easily triggered into those meltdowns too, a lot of times. And it gives them that reward that they're looking for. Other neurotypicals, it can happen to them too, but I just think it's easier for them to provoke it out of an autistic person. And George says this is what astro traveling is, or astral projection, is the spiritual and esoteric concept of a person's consciousness or astral body separating from their physical body to journey independently on a plane of where else did it go? A plane of existence. Interesting.
Well, I've written that down, and I'm definitely gonna. I like, yeah. If I don't know what something is, I'm gonna be honest and say I have no idea what that is.
They were also asking you what sign you are, and I said, well, of course, she's Pisces like me. I mean, March 2nd to March 3rd.
Yeah, I'm a Pisces sun. Well, I'm in my peak era right now. For those of you that are astrology inclined, planetary inclined, I'm a Pisces sun, Virgo ascending, Gemini moon. So I am a mutable sign across the board. And right now, the world is a very interesting place for someone like me.
Well, and me too, probably, right?
Yeah.
Or does it have more to do with birth times, etc.?
It does, yeah. So if I could talk, your moon sign is where the moon was, what sign the moon was in. And then your ascending sign is going to change as well. It's all based on like your time of birth and your location in the world. So yours might be a little different.
I see. So the follow-up is, this phenomenon is an out-of-body experience that can occur spontaneously or be induced through spiritual practice like meditation. And Jolly said that too. It starts with meditation. I know more about meditation, and also I'm just not as well versed on all of the spiritual lingo. And sometimes people will talk about that in like Instagram comment sections, and it kind of makes my head hurt sometimes, because I would much prefer people just talk like they're explaining it to a 5-year-old, but instead some people, they love using the big words. It's kind of like the Sam Vaknin method. Like Sam Vaknin, he loves trying to use the big words, and like it sounds much more flowery and intelligent and smart because he's using all these big words all the time. But I think some of it gets lost in translation, as opposed to, say, an HG tutor. He's much more like simple and direct with it, which makes it, to me, easier to understand. Now, some people really enjoy the Sammy Boy method because I think it makes them like feel smarter as well. Like, oh yes, I'm listening to this guy with his Eastern European accent or whatever it is. But speaking of Sammy Boy, we had mentioned this before too, about how, well, I should first ask you this. Do you think autistic people can be comorbid with narcissism?
Yes.
And so then the follow-up question to that is, someone was saying the other day, gotta get this out of here.
I was like, oh, this is we're doing a reel of comments.
Now, there's all been sorts of comments. I just haven't put them up there. But oh, that's what it was. So he had said there's people that can be autistic, that it is so painful for their autism to be in contact with the world that they develop a layer of narcissism to protect themselves. So the baseline operating system is autistic, but then they have this kind of narcissistic defense. And this would be more of an environmental narcissism, I guess, as opposed to the version of narcissism that Dr. Salerno would talk about. But again, if your operating system's autistic, that's part of a genetic thing, I would say. So I definitely believe it can be something that happens, because even with my dad, I couldn't tell if it's more like autistic or narcissistic spectrum. I think it could be like autistic with narcissistic traits, but either way, because he would say some callous things that would be really hurtful. But it was really hard to determine it though, because like the only thing I think was missing was like the grandiosity, but at the same time, he was that way behind closed doors, just not out and about, right? Out and about, it wouldn't be there, but at home, it was the tyrant and good to be king and all that kind of stuff, right? And
right.
He wasn't being ironic with it either. It was like, no, it's good to be the king, and because I said so, were his favorite things to say. So I don't know what it was, but what do you think about that? The autistic being comorbid with narcissism, and the people that are autistic having that narcissistic defense to buffer them from the world?
So here's where it gets, okay. So to answer the question directly, because autistic people like to process bottom up, not top down. So we give all the details first and then the conclusion. I'm going to give the conclusion. Yes, I believe that they can be comorbid. Here's where it gets complicated though. Autistic people, and I'm not speaking from my own opinion or my lens. I'm speaking from the experience of having lots and lots of comments on my pages. Autistic people can get very, very, and understandably so, offended when someone compares an autistic way of being with someone who has NPD. They get very, very, very angry and upset. So remember what I said earlier about the whole confirmation bias, right? Like even in the face of science, a lot of people, we try to find things that confirm our reality or our version of the narrative. So I'm keeping that in my mind as I say this in this live. The thing that people have to remember is that autism is a neurodevelopmental component, right? So you are gonna, like, by the time you're ready to be born, it's determined. Like, here it is. You're going to be autistic. It's not something that, well, by the time I was 18, I identified as an autistic person. Like, that's not how it works, okay? Now, where things get interesting with the narcissism is, and this is a hot topic as well, because people get offended by comparing autistic and NPD. Okay, fair enough. They're not the same thing, and it lies in intent. But now we've got this hot topic around NPD and the genetic and the environment, right? Like the chicken and the egg, right? So some people, conversation around NPD, they're also going to get triggered when I say, well, now there's more research around genetics. So you could be born with a predisposition to develop NPD, especially if that environment is, not attuned. That being said, we know people that have a perfectly fine environment and still develop NPD, right? So if you're dealing with a neurodevelopmental disorder, Jared and Kelly were determined to be autistic from the beginning of time. Now, if we both have narcissistic genetics, there's a possibility that that's brewing. If the environment, puts it a certain way, that's another part. Narcissism is if we're dealing with full NPD, it is a personality disorder. It's not neurodevelopmental. It has to do with the personality structure that is inflexible. And this is not just NPD. This is cluster A, cluster B, cluster C. Doesn't matter. It is an inflexible, rigid way of thinking, feeling, and behaving that affects your relationships. It affects your own world. And you're unable to flexibly identify with what is actually going on. So, in my mind, those are two very different things, and they could absolutely coexist. I don't know personally, and I'm sure there are experts out there that might tell me that I'm nuts, and you know what? That's fine. I could be wrong, and I'm sure there are people that will say that I'm not. But I think when you're dealing with one thing at a time, you can't ignore that they could be comorbid. Just like complex PTSD, you can only be diagnosed with complex PTSD if you have experienced chronic, repetitive, inescapable, interpersonal trauma, usually starting in childhood, but not always. CPTSD, you are not born with. CPTSD is not genetically passed down. Could you be more at risk? Maybe, I don't know. But at a baseline, it is only from trauma. So you can't say, well, CPTSD can't be comorbid with autism. Well, yes, it can. So I think your operating system is your baseline, but you can have, think of it like the tree root. Your tree root is your operating system, but your branches and the leaves, they could have other shit going on.
That's true. I mean, I agree. I mean, George says she's sorry about your house of horrors you grew up in. Ellie says a beautiful combo of your astrology signs as well. And AD, welcome there too to her as well. But I don't know why people get so upset about just even comparing autism and narcissism. Just like I don't understand the people that get upset if narcissism has a large genetic component, or the people that really emphasize it. That seems to upset people too, just like it upsets people that say, oh, it's more grandiose than narcissists being insecure. People have these fixed ideas, and then they don't even like having those ideas questioned. And the same thing with the autistic NPD thing. It's ironic to me because the people who get the most mad, it's like, well, you're also acting the most narcissistic now as well. So you say you're autistic, but then here you are losing your mind that I even compared the two. And it's like, is this more autistic of you, or is this more narcissistic of you? I know which one I would think it is, but I mean, some people would try to say, well, that autistic person, They're very sensitive to having their sense of order be questioned, or just like the ADHD person that is, what is that term? The rejection sensitivity dysphoria. It's
Yeah.
like, sure, sure. But even so, there's still going to be, I think, a base layer of safety that's there even with an autistic person versus the person that is more personality disordered. The personality disordered person, to me, that's the biggest part, the lack of emotional safety, that hostility or passive aggressiveness, something where it's just not going to feel quite right. Even if you're talking about vulnerable narcissism, for example, or covert narcissism, but let's say vulnerable for lack of a better word, but vulnerable ones, even them, I don't think there's going to be as much emotional safety with them because they're going to have those passive aggressive stuff. They're going to have silent treatments, guilt trips, all that kind of good stuff. And there's also the research now that says vulnerable narcissism really just might be borderline. That's what some people say now too.
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I have. And it's a very interesting conversation because I personally can kind of see it a little bit, but no, I mean, I've done quite a bit of content, and this was before I even knew about my own stuff. I've done quite a bit of content on the difference between the two because there have been, there's been some ignorant comments, and then there's been some offended, like you've seen it all too, right? And so what I tell people is, look, there's a reason why one of my playlists is diagnosis overlap. So I will, from time to time, usually it's when people ask me, they want to know what's the difference between NPD and BP. They want to go through how you differentiate which one is which, right? So for the sake of this conversation, and it really is important, a person with NPD, they have a false sense of self. Like, it is not an authentic self. It is like, maybe it's their true self in the sense that that's how they've adapted to their circumstances, but the way that they behave all the time, their worldview, right, is this constant focus on protecting their own ego, avoiding any kind of exposure or accountability. They have a very grand sense of entitlement. There's a extraordinary lack of empathy, and there is a desire, not just a, oh well, this one time at band camp I controlled you. Like, there is an intentional desire and need to exploit and control other people with very little regard for the impact that has on individuals. And so for me, I'm like, that has nothing to do with autism. Autistic people are not looking to protect themselves through the guise of avoiding exposure and accountability for doing all these terrible things that focus on our sense of entitlement and needing to control people. We are protecting ourselves through masking and other various things to prevent from being harmed. We're not trying to control other people. That's not even on our radar. We're not like trying to exploit people or hurt people. That's not, if we do hurt people in our bluntness or our literalness or our lack of understanding, we actually feel really, really bad. And it's quite embarrassing. Someone with NPD, they're not going to give a shit about that. They're not going to care. Like, I know for me, if I do something that I don't realize hurts someone's feelings, I feel really bad. Like, I feel quite a lot of shame. And I internalize a lot of it. Whereas somebody with NPD, what are they going to do? Oh, your reaction is the issue. It's all externalization. Like, they're not the same thing. There are some behaviors that could be confused if you don't understand what you're looking at, but the intent is, they're not even on the same planet. So I don't know why, and this, I'm just being honest, I don't know why autistic people get so worked up about it, because I'm like, bro, if you're not intentionally hurting people, if you're not trying to avoid exposure and accountability. You have empathy. You care about others. You're aware of your challenges through the lens of the neurodevelopmental part, the sensory issues, and so on and so forth. And you're not trying to control other people with no regard. You don't need to worry. Like you don't have to defend yourself. But they need to, because why? Why though?
All right. I mean, do you think there's versions of autism that also have empathy deficits? Because I do think there are, for different reasons, though.
That's a really good question. Traditionally, and by traditionally, I mean, like, given that I was born in the 80s, and in the 80s, like, dude, like, what was an autistic child, right? Like, it was a very extreme version of events, right? So, because we know that it's on a spectrum as well. There can be more severity, there can be higher effect, blah, 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 blah. So yes, there are some people. Now, this version I don't think it's in the DSM anymore. I believe they removed Asperger's.
Yeah, they did.
From the DSM. So before, I would have personally categorized what you're speaking of as more of like Asperger's, right? Like where they, like I as an example, I worked with a doc at the hospital that I won't name, obviously, for privacy, but this guy had to be autistic. He was very blunt, very flat affect. He could be extraordinary. Like, he could be rude. Like, he would just come to the desk sometimes and say, I don't understand why you typed that the left ventricle was this. I don't understand why you said that. That doesn't make any sense to me. And it would come across like very aggressive and very rude, and like he lacked empathy. But with him, once you just listened to him and then you fixed the mistake, he kind of like calmed down, and he'd kind of go, oh, thank you for fixing that. Whereas like a narcissist would never, they wouldn't even, like, they don't care. Like, you know what I'm saying?
So I think also what happens is the autistic person, if they don't understand like social cues and they don't understand social calibration, it's more of like an intellectual empathy they're missing. They don't understand it. And if they don't understand it, then it's hard for them to present as having empathy. And I think that's one version of this, right? I think another version of it is the brain might just have like differences as well. And then one of those differences might just be an impaired empathy, maybe not for the same exact reason that narcissists have it, but it can also kind of affect, maybe autism impacts some of the same parts of the brain that narcissism is impacted by. That's also a thing, I think. And back to our friend Sammy Boy, he had said that, this is how he describes it. He had said, in fact, his most interesting work to me is about autism as well. But he had said that narcissists can have performative empathy and can fake it better than autistic people. But he said autistic people, they have a version of it a lot of times, but they can't display it. It's like it's not operable. Like they can't present it to the world. So it's like they have it, but they can't show it. Narcissists don't have it, but they're better at pretending to show it. That's the way he said it.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting. Well, and I think too, with the mirroring, right? Again, intention. Like, they have an intention to manipulate and control a person. So in that intention being their driving force of everything that they do, they have to figure out how to effectively accomplish that. And so they learn that the best way that they can do that is to manipulate by mirroring and idolizing and information gathering and showing some level of cognitive empathy to make it seem like they're so interested and they care so much. It's all fake. Whereas an autistic person, if they're showing this flat affect, lack of empathy, they're a little more blunt. Again, their intention is not malicious. They're not standing there thinking, I'm going to be this way in this conversation because I don't care about anybody but myself and I'm entitled and I actually have intention to hurt this person in the future so that I can control them. That's not even on their radar. It's just, they're very literal. And so they can come across as uncaring or unempathetic, but it's not because they're trying to hurt you. And that's the part that I try to explain to people. I'm like, it's two different things.
Right. Well, and even Sammy Boy, he says another thing about it too. He says deep down, he said there are some autistic people that deep down beneath their autistic layer, there is sometimes like a grandiosity that wants to come out. Is what Sammy Boy says. And if you look at Elon Musk, for example, to me, that could be an example of that, because to me, he's autistic, but I think he's also absolutely narcissistic as well. Like he's got both, I would say. If you look at his behaviors, he's got both aspects where he's like, he loses it on people that call him out on anything. He'll tell them to go fuck themselves, all sorts of things. But he's also definitely on the spectrum too. Like you look at how he talks in social situations, a lot of times he's just flat affect, very like callous to the point, very scientific.
Yeah.
But then, and now you see him now that he's like runs Tesla, he runs SpaceX, he's freaking running X. So now you see this different side of him, like what was on the inside of him. And it's like, oh, I wonder like what comes first, right? Was that already all there? Or is this just the trappings of all the money, power, and success that he has? Like, which one is it? I don't know. It's hard to say. And Gabriel says here, nobody wants to have MPD, but not even people with MPD. So I can understand why it offends autistic people and can make them insecure and defensive. Yeah. I guess that's like the part for me that, I don't know. I just don't have that part of me where like I can listen to all of it and it just doesn't bother me for some reason.
Well, and this is why I say, what Gabriel said, I completely understand that. So that's why I was at least trying to be sensitive and thoughtful in my delivery, because I have seen it and I have thoughtfully discussed it and tried to explain the difference and validate, both sides of the conversation. But I am like you, like in my own mind, my own experiences, I don't have that kind of reaction. And it doesn't mean that my reaction is the only right reaction. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just, I don't experience it that way. I see it very clearly, and I don't get offended when, somebody says, well, aren't they the same thing? But I also understand why people can and do, especially if you have been accused of being a narcissist and you're not, if you've come from the narcissistic family, and there's a sensitivity there, or you've been abused in the relationship and like it can be very activating. It's like, how could someone think that I'm remotely like this person that treats others that way? So I completely understand Gabriel's comment, and that's kind of what I was trying to be sensitive about at the start when I opened the conversation up, because I get it. I do.
I mean, and what are your bullet points to help people distinguish between autism and narcissism?
Bullet points. It is like honest to God, it, at the end of the day, it really boils down to intent. It really does. That is the line in the sand that I will draw, because with somebody with narcissistic traits, even if they're not full NPD, there is intention. There can be manipulative and malicious intention to use information against people. They're mirroring when it's not real. They're pretending to have empathy when they don't. They're only concerned about how it serves their purpose. They are completely focused on power and control. Like, that's intent. And people with autism, our driving operating system, our intention is to, not get overwhelmed by how we experience the world. And we do have some, I'll just use this word, kind of some bizarre, behavior things or rigid ways of doing things that help us maintain feeling more neurotypical, especially when we've been shunned or punished, and not as overwhelmed. And so those things could look a little similar to narcissism. You might go, oh, that's kind of weird. But again, we are not doing it maliciously. We're trying to reduce our overwhelm. We're trying to help the sensory problems. We're trying to soothe that, central nervous system, not through the lens of hurting other people. That's like the best explanation I can give. I'm sure there's another expert that might do it better, but that's what
I was
I've got.
curious. I was just curious what you're going to say. I mean, the issue with the intent piece is it can be sometimes difficult to see what people's intent is. Like if the behaviors are similar, you don't
Sure.
know always what the intent is. But I mean, what I say to people is like an autistic person should be able to admit when they're wrong, and there should be some sort
Yes.
of collaboration in there and able to have some sort of humility and honesty about things, honesty about themselves, as opposed to this grandiosity where they're going to be big and bad and try to pretend to be better than they are a lot of times. And then just that lack of collaboration with a narcissistic person, plus that combative feeling that you get when you're speaking to them, a narcissistic person, those are the things that you don't normally see with the autistic person as much, right? It's not going to be as abrasive. It's not going to feel like a battle as much. They might be callous and blunt, but that's different. Like that's a little bit different than what I'm referring to with a narcissistic person. The narcissistic person is antagonistic, condescending, provocative, baiting, provoking. You don't see that really with autistic people in my experience. And the other thing, outside of autistic women, narcissistic people generally much more verbally affluent than autistic guys in particular. You don't normally see autistic guys that are more charismatic and fluent. Like usually they're struggling. Like they're going to be more like Elon Musk. And then someone might say, well, Jared, you seem to speak pretty well. But for me, it's really only because of all the supplements that I take. If I didn't take all the supplements that I do, I wouldn't speak nearly as fluently as you hear me speaking right now. But if someone is on no meds, no supplements, no, they're not going to be fluent more than likely. A narcissistic person, I think they're usually able to be more articulate. They're able to be more charismatic and confident, generally. I don't ever want to say it's black and white always, but generally, those are some of the things I see.
You as soon as you said what you said at the very, very start, I was like, oh, because for me, 10 o'clock is late for the P Dubz. I was like, oh my God. Right. Okay. When people ask me, how do you tell if someone, because I got so focused on the autistic part, people have asked me as an educator, how do I tell if someone's narcissistic? Like how do I know for sure? And so here is my rule of thumb. And it really does apply in comparison with an autistic person. Tell them the word no, like for real. Tell them the word no or set a boundary, like what I was talking about earlier with the tickling. I don't prefer that. It could be simple. I don't want to eat that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to drink that. You just set a boundary or say the word no, or tell them that they did something to upset you. You watch the fireworks, because even a covert narcissist who's going to be right, like they're going to be more insidious in what they're doing, there is going to be a genuine difficulty in their ability to accept your no without pushing. There's going to be a genuine difficulty in taking any accountability, right? Without even them kind of, well, I understand what you're saying, but you know, the thing about that is that actually it's I'm just gonna talk for 3 minutes in word salad to distract you from the problem. Like there's gonna be it's gonna feel wrong to you. You're gonna feel like you're not being heard. An autistic person, they may look at you funny, they might not get it for a minute, but they will ultimately hear your no. They will hear when something that they're doing like upsets you. Like, and I'm not talking about like you have a sensory reaction. Like if it was something genuinely upsetting, they're able to hear it and they're able to like sit with it and move through that conversation. A narcissist they cannot and will not. So that I just remembered, I'm like, oh my God, that's what I always tell people. If you want to know, tell them no. Like I've told you this. Peggy told me at the start of our relationship, and I was so daft. But I was like, oh, he's passionate. He told me at the start of our relationship that he was motivated by the word no.
How about that? No is a boundary, and you want to try to overcome it. I did a post about that the other day. Be very careful with people who think no means try harder.
Yeah, but it's true. Like any person I've ever encountered who is autistic, that I know is autistic, if I've ever told them no, they don't like. There's been some moments where they kind of don't totally fully get it, but it's not the same reaction as a narcissist. Like a narcissist, the word no makes them angry. Even if they don't show it overtly, you can feel it. Like they might walk out of the room, they might, you know, like put their drink down, get up, like they do something to make you feel that, oh, that was the wrong reaction. And that's by design because they want you to feel intimidated to say how you feel and how you think and how you like. That's part of the loss of the self in the relationship, is that they slowly and insidiously break you down as a person, as an individual, so that you're a shell of yourself at the end of it. Like you don't know who you are, you don't know how to stand up for yourself, you don't know. I mean, Christ, by the time I left Peggy, I didn't know what I liked to eat because I had no idea. I'm not having that problem with an autistic person. I promise you that.
That's true. I mean, the only times I see autistic people really get upset is if their structure gets interrupted. Like they like to have things be a certain way. And if it's not that certain way, the pattern, then I've seen some autistic people get upset about that. I've seen that. And it's also, and we're similar in this regard too, where I think autistic people can kind of be like a cat, where they have to run around a room to get comfortable with their new surroundings. And the same thing with people too. You kind of get familiar with a person by having all sorts of deep conversations to kind of like explore their soul, for lack of a better word. So you know what you're dealing with, just like you do that with a physical surrounding too. Yep.
I told you that the podcast that I listened, the two different podcasts that I listened to with that doctor, she basically went through the DSM criteria, and then she explained how it presents differently in girls than boys. Like it was a great podcast. With Dr. Donna Henderson, that's her name. And she gave specific examples of things that you could see in really young girls, school age girls, and then teens. Like she kind of went through the different criteria. And one of the things that I can't remember which part of the DSM it was, I can't for the life of me at 10 o'clock at night, but she said autistic kids in general, but girls especially, we do this thing where we walk the perimeter of, like, if we go to a playground, we feel the need to walk the perimeter. And oh my God, I burst out laughing because it's something that I've done. Like I used to do it as a kid at the school. Like I would walk around the perimeter of the actual playground so that I could, I don't know, it was some freaking weird ritual that I had, that it was like, okay, now I've walked a perimeter and I've scanned all the things, and now I'm allowed to go on the monkey bars. Like it's some bizarre rule that I had that made no sense to me, but it soothed my central nervous system. There was something about it the repetition that, I don't know, it did a thing.
No, I think that's part of like a structure that I'm talking about too. Like people have these routines or they have these rituals that they have around certain things.
Yep.
And it just is what it is, right? It's like an eccentric part of being autistic, I would say.
Yep. What do you think is your, I don't know, are you comfortable sharing? What do you think is your weirdest ritual of the things that you do in your day? Like, is there one that you're like, yeah, that's different. People might not understand it, but for you, it's like you have to do it.
I mean, I've developed more ritual, and here's the thing: as I've developed more and more of a supplement routine, my physical anxiety has gone down,
Right.
but my rigidness and ritualisticness has gone up. So now, like I do my affirmations of things I do every morning, where I write a group of things down 15 times, like 5 to 7 things, like every single day for years. I have notebooks back here of like notebooks full of doing that. And I learned that from Scott Adams on the Tim Ferriss podcast, because he had said he was into a hypnotist, and a hypnotist told him, if you want something, you write something down 15 times, no matter what it is, or something you want to cultivate within yourself. And so I learned that about 10 years ago, and I've been doing it ever since. So that's one. Another one, I got the wands that I carry around all the time. Another little trinket I have with the wands, that's another one. My popcorn oranges and carrots every single night now too. The supplements just in general, that's a routine my supplement routine is probably the one people would think I'm the most insane about. So they would say, like, because I have a structure where I take a group of supplements in the morning, another group of supplements 5 hours later, another group 3 hours later, and then another group 2 to 3 hours after that. And then some stuff right before bed. Every single day, I do that. And then within that, there's a 5-hour energy in the morning, and then a 20-ounce coffee from Wawa 5 hours later, but give or take 5 hours later. And then 3 pieces of 90% dark chocolate to replenish the copper, that zinc and whatever else. When you take zinc or NaC, they can chelate your minerals. So you have to take other things to counteract it. So all of that, like that's my supplement routine is probably the most weird one. And that's people that if they were to see me, they'd be like, and I've done this before, right? When I was like, say I would, years ago, I sleep over at some woman's house and I'd bring my gear with me and she'd be like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what the hell's wrong with you? But like, that's what it was. Like, it's weird to the outside people, but every day I do it. And there's some of these supplements I've been taking over 10 years now, like as part of who I am now. And I didn't start with the routine I have now, but it built up into that. So now there's probably like 15 things that I take, like every day, probably. It might be, I have to count them to know for sure, but it's probably around 15.
15. I mean, I'm not there, but I've got,
it's probably 20 actually. It's actually probably 20.
I have 7. So like, that's pretty, like, that's not crazy, but that's up there. And I get what you're saying because, I don't take as many supplements as you. Mine are more like vitamins, I'd say, but, I can tell you, 2 nights ago, I think it was, I went into the bathroom to take my nighttime stuff. And you'll relate to this for sure. I had a kind of a freak out because I couldn't remember if I'd already, like, I had this trip up that I thought I'd already taken my 3 supplements at night. And then I was like doubting myself. I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I've taken it. And so I got so distressed because
that happens. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, of these 3, if I were to double up on it, like, if I did, what's going to happen? So I had to ask ChatGPT, like, okay, let's pretend I took it. Like, which one which ones can I take and which ones do I ditch? And so we had a conversation about the risks and da da da. And I was like, I cannot not take my magnesium biglycinate. I don't know why. That is the one supplement that if I don't take it, I get very distressed.
You know why? I know why.
Tell me why.
Because magnesium impacts the GABA system of the brain. And that's why they say autistic people, their GABA system's off. But magnesium helps increase GABA, along with other things too. There's a bunch of other things that I take. A GABA supplement, taurine, they all boost GABA in the brain, but magnesium does too. So if you stop magnesium as an autistic person, you're very likely to feel that.
Wow.
And alcohol also greatly impacts the GABA system as well.
Oh, yes.
GABA A agonist. Now, question for you. Someone said, where does Henderson have a website?
That's a really good question. I don't know. My therapist sent me all this stuff. I should look. I should have been more prepared on that front.
And she's a doctor?
Yeah, Dr. Donna Henderson. And she did, I'm wondering if I send, hang on. Am I still there?
You froze.
Okay, hang on. Give me, oh my God, this is so stupid. Why does this do this? Okay.
There, you're back.
What I was gonna say is I could get the link out of my email and I can put it in the chat thing.
I mean, if you can do it without going away.
I don't know if I can do it without going away.
If you can send it to me via your phone, or you're on your phone right now doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you wouldn't be able to do it. What I can do is include it in the comment section of the video.
There we go. Yeah. So yeah, we can link it. It was super interesting. There was one interview where she just walked through the DSM-5 criteria and she broke down each specifically how it applies to girls, why it's different. It was really, really, really cool. And then when I was listening, what I was doing was I was identifying with any of the behavior that she listed. Because she didn't just read the DSM and say, oh, it's this. Like she gave like real life examples around like what this might look like. And I found it so validating. And then the other podcast was a case study of a teenage girl. I want to say she was 14 or 15 that was, she was having really a lot of the struggles that I had at the same age. So I found it really, really fascinating. And so her parents were very supportive, thank goodness. So they were trying to find out like what was going on and why she was having the struggles and all the different things. Anyways, in the end, she gets diagnosed with autism. And this girl said that it was the most important thing that could have happened to her because she stopped feeling like there was something wrong with her, that she was an invalid, that she just, wasn't as smart as other kids in some places, but then she was way smarter than them and others. And so she just felt like she didn't fit in. And I thought, oh my God, I wonder how the world would have changed for me. I'll never know. And I figure I took the path that I took for the reasons that I did, same as you, right? Like we're here now for a reason in this place. But I do wonder a little bit sometimes, like when I was having the worst struggles in my upbringing, 1996, 14, it was, oh my God, like the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst. If I had learned that this is what this was, and I could have understood some of my behavior and had resources for, oh my God, like my whole life would have been so different, like just in school and with people. And yeah, I just think it would have been really different.
And people ask me this a lot too, but as an autistic person, like how do you suggest people handle it if a narcissistic person is trying to trigger them into a meltdown?
Oh man.
Because this happens outside of just romantic relationships, right? It happens in
Yeah.
friendships. It happens in the family. It can happen in the workplace. So what are your suggestions?
Oh man. So this is hard because I was able to adapt, like it's not that it was maladaptive. It was maladaptive in the self-betrayal component, but I was able to adapt behaviors that allowed me to survive those types of provoking reactions, right? Like I was able to, in a way, like shut it down, dissociate, disconnect from it because that was safer. And that, I'm not saying that that's the answer. I'm just saying that for someone like me, that's what I would like typically gravitate towards. Um and I'm feeling so cheesy right now saying this because it just feels like 1987 and you'll get it, but like sometimes the best thing to do for real, and I did it to Peggy, sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away, drop the rope. I know some people would say, oh my God, that's a bullying slogan from 1989, but it really is true. Like they are looking for that reaction, they're looking for that conflict. And sometimes just removing yourself is like the healthiest, safest thing to do. It's its own version of gray rock, or it's not jade per se, but it is. You're not justifying, arguing, defending. It's like you're just like, you know what? I'm gonna walk away now. They usually don't know what to do with that. Honestly, like it throws them off, and it gives you a second to regulate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with walking away, or the best response is sometimes no response. I think that's a great way to deal with it. And if you can't walk away for whatever reason, then that's where the other tools come in. Whether it's gray rock, yellow rock, BIF, brief, informative, friendly, firm, or seeing them as an emotional 4-year-old or a malfunctioning robot, or imagining the Curb Your Enthusiasm music playing, or the Charlie Brown's teacher voice, wop, 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 wop. Anything to kind of disempower them in your head is what I would say in that situation. If you can't walk away, there's all those tools to try to do it.
And yeah, and I was, it's interesting. I'm glad that you said that as well, because I was like, do I bring DBT into this? Because DBT is more trauma focused, but I do think that it applies here. Like DBT therapy skills, that toolbox it's so useful just in terms of the distress tolerance skills, the mindfulness, and especially since autistic people have alexithymia, we are unable to access or and identify feelings in the same way that a neurotypical person does. So we typically have higher pain tolerance and responses to things like even things like as children and even as adults, like we sometimes don't we need to go to the bathroom and we just hold it because it's like we can fly with it until it's like, okay, now it's an emergency, because we just don't feel it the same way. And if we're focused on something else, if we're hyper focused, it's, oh, I don't care about that. So DBT allows you to start to really identify, okay, you know what, this is really bothering me and I don't like it, and I'm identifying with that feeling. And now what am I going to do to like lower my distress and like keep my mindfulness intact so that I don't give them this reaction? But it's hard because when you're dealing with a neurodevelopmental part, that's not it's a different thing than the trauma. So it is really challenging. And like I say, I'm still learning to maneuver this new world of, hey kiddo, and it's not an excuse. It's not like, oh, I'm autistic, I can flail around and throw plates at people and be sensory overloaded. Like it's just more, I'm practicing like not shaming myself for feeling really overwhelmed by like the trucks backing up and beeping here all goddamn morning with the garbage. Like it makes me like crazy. So it's like little things like that I'm just trying to be kind to myself now and being like, kiddo, this is your wiring. It's really annoying. It'll be done in 5 minutes. Like it's just, instead of, oh my God, what's wrong with you? Why are you reacting this way? Like, it's just like that slight shift in the self-compassion language.
Now, what's the definition of alexithymia?
Oh God. Well, it's an inability to identify feelings and body sensations.
Sounds a lot like the old CPTSD there. Huh?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you saw that clip I put up on Instagram with Christian today, but he had said narcissistic parents give their kids, what did he call it? Life dysmorphia and emotional dysmorphia. And he said, you're not used to feeling your feelings. You're not allowed to feel your feelings, because if you ever do, you're going to get ripped, especially if you're the scapegoat. So you have all this stuff and you just don't know what it is. You don't know how to handle it. You don't know how to process it. So what he used to do was, in the beginning, if I'm sad, I write down I am sad. If I'm angry, I write down I'm angry. So it's similar, right? It's similar to how when you're autistic, you can have a very similar thing from having CPTSD from a narcissistic parent. And I think, of course, autism plus CPTSD will compound, right? It's like CPTSD on top of autism can't make it any better. Like, I could only imagine that it makes both worse in a way.
Oh, it absolutely does, because it's like I said earlier, like, you're having the autism it's your operating system. It's how you experience the world, right? But the CPTSD is how you react to the world. So it's what Christian said is absolutely right. Like, I, as the scapegoat, as a traumatized person, I wasn't, the baseline is we're not emotionally attuned to. So if you're not emotionally attuned to, and your parents don't mirror, they say, oh, you're sad and da 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 da, you can't access those feelings because it's not safe. But the extra layer with the alexithymia is that there's an actual inability to identify what it is that we're feeling and the body sensations that are happening. We just have this, and there can be stimming, it's icky, we don't know what it is, but we don't like it. And that's what that is.
I would also wonder if there's differences in gender too, and how like men may struggle with that in different ways than women do.
Probably.
Like, do you in your romantic relationships, from what I know of them, you're still able to really demonstrate love and show it. Where I think the gripe against men would be, autistic men, the people around them probably don't feel as loved and cared about, if I had to guess. So they're not like displaying those emotions a lot of times, in a way similar to what Sammy Boy was saying, right? They have empathy in most cases, but they just can't display it in a way that humanizes it, that makes it real. So I don't know. Have you seen anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you that it's different in boys and girls, and that's one of the things that throws people off, is that our ability to connect is there. The desire is there, and it's hugely there with our depth. But here's probably the part. So when I mentioned my mom, the physical closeness, the cuddling, and the like being entrapped, and that I'm very choosy about. Like, if it's too much sensory for me, it could make me quite, ooh. But emotionally connecting, like just being near a person, even just like having my hand on their arm, but not getting in their physical space to the point that I'm smothering them. Like, I'm really, really good at that stuff, and making people feel seen and heard and understood if I feel safe with you. If I don't, that part of me shuts down in spades. Like I'm very scared and reluctant, and I kind of shell up. And so I think, yeah, the connection piece is probably where it lies more, as opposed to the physicality. But then again, the way that women's minds work, because we've talked about
Sure,
this, the
yeah.
whole masculine, feminine, and containment. If I'm emotionally right, connecting, and I'm feeling safe, then the physical part of that is going to kind of follow. Whereas if I'm like not feeling emotionally safe, I'm like, hell
Right.
no.
Well, two things for me too. One is, who is it? Like when it comes to people giving me physical affection, who is it for one? And I
Yeah.
better like feeling comfortable with them. And for two, I prefer it to be on my terms too. It's like, it's one thing if I want it, but if it's like not, I'm not in the mood for it, then it's like, then it's a really no go. So it just depends for me, right? And it's the same way with me and peopling, where I got several moods. Like one mood would be a very outgoing social mood. Another mood would be other people's energy just makes my skin crawl. And when I'm in that mood, I don't want to be around anybody. And there's not much anyone could or should do to me in that situation, because the only thing left is time. And that's something that my parents would struggle with, because they wouldn't know how to deal with that one version of me, right? The one that, and there was a reason why they would make my skin crawl sometimes, because of all the lack of emotional safety, walking on eggshells. And when that was the way it was, I wanted nothing to do with them. And this is something how I handle things to this day. Like once I feel emotionally unsafe with someone, then I'm just kind of done with them. Like they can
Yeah.
I could easily be done with them. This is one of the reasons I used to think I was borderline, because I could easily just split. But it was kind of a prolonged split where it wouldn't be necessarily one thing. But over time, if that emotional safety thing was missing, then all of a sudden I have no problems being like, no, I'm done. I'm done with you. And I don't even care. And this happens. It can happen with family. It can happen with friends. It's definitely happened in romantic relationships too, but more so with friends and family, where once I dread being around you, once I just don't want to deal with you anymore, it's over. I've never had someone in my mind, for the very most part. I can think of an exception. My dad's actually an exception to it. He used to be that way to me, where I just didn't want any parts of it. But as I've gotten older, and maybe I've gotten better with myself, it's not that way with him now. But now there's other people that I put him in the box. They're in that emotionally unsafe box. And usually they're narcissistic too. But once they're in that box, like I just have no problems being done with them. And that part, like I sometimes feel bad about it in a way where I'm like, wow, these people you've known for years, like maybe you should. Other people have criticized me. Other like friends I've had have said, Jared, you got to give people more chances, or you have to, I don't know, be more forgiving or something. But it's like I said, once people are in that box, I don't even want to forgive. I don't even want to see them. Like they're just kind of dead to me at that point. So I don't know what that is.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that all up, because again, with the autism part, that the autism is how I experience. So you experience the world, and so do I, through that lens first, right? But with me, complex PTSD is the driving force in how I react. So what you said about like, oh, once a person does this, then this is how I feel, and then this is what I do, and this is my process. That very well could be your autism running the show. Now, if it's borderline, I don't know. I'm just running with this idea. Now, with me, maybe I have that initial thought or reaction. Maybe somebody pisses me off to a certain point, and my autistic experience is, you know what? No. Now, The problem is, in my wiring, we've also got complex PTSD and scapegoat wounds. So that part kicks in, and my reaction to it is, oh, well, no, you can't abandon this person. You have to try harder. And, maybe if you say it differently, da 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 da. And so part of my healing is being aware of my CPTSD lens, how that has influenced my behavior and how I react to things and, like deal with things that really don't honor me at all. Right. And get back to this more authentic way of being, which really is a neurodevelopmental person over here, neurosparkly, as I call it. So it's just interesting you say that, because I wonder for myself, right? If I had no reaction through that more scapegoat wounding lens, right? Would I be more like you? Like, it's a really interesting question. Like, would I feel safe to just go, you know what? This person has violated my boundaries and I don't like this connection and it's making me feel unsafe and I should just be done with it. What still happens is I try, like, and I'm catching it now in some places where I'm like, I'm still trying. Oh, if I say it differently, da, da, da. Oh, I shouldn't abandon them. I know what it feels like to be abandoned, even though they're taking up all my goddamn bandwidth and they're not reciprocating. Like, it's not a reciprocal relationship. And I see that. So you just triggered something in my head around, okay, my initial experience is it's not reciprocal. You're taking up my bandwidth. You're having no regard for my boundaries. This is pissing me off. But then CPTSD goes, but you have to maintain connection and maybe you're wrong. And maybe if you just say it differently, then they'll do like, do you see what I mean? Like,
now, do you do that with everyone, or is that more likely in romantic relationships, or is that more like in any relationship?
It's in most relationships, and it's something that I've been working on hugely in my journey around interpersonal trauma, because my wiring is to really believe at a baseline that any issues in the relationship are probably something that I've done to cause it. So I think, oh, okay, they're doing this because I'm doing this wrong, so I have to fix it. And I've had to unpack that a lot in therapy. And it's, it's like even some of my stuff that I've sort of walked through a little bit here and there with ChatGPT, ChatGPT will say, dude, your entire way of surviving your whole life was to accommodate to abusive people. That is how you survived everything that you went through. So it's going to take you a minute to realize that, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. And I won't get hurt, and I won't get, and even if they do have a reaction, I'm a 43-year-old woman. I'm not a 7-year-old kid anymore. That's, like, I'm safe in my home, like all those things are different. But this is why the limbic system, it over remembers. This is why we can't think our way out of trauma.
Now, yeah, Christian said that too. I mean, but that's also a well-known thing too. Christian's not the only one who said that. But the only time I was ever tempted to do that was in romantic relationships, especially if I'd ever shared something vulnerable about myself. That would be the only time I really wanted to make sure I had connection, or like I wasn't abandoned. I would have it in that respect. Now, the only time it happens is if it's really just if I've been vulnerable about something and then like I get rejected in that way. That's the only time I really want to maintain that connection in that form. In every other form, no. And it's really only if like I've taken a chance on something and the chance didn't go well, then I'll be upset. But if I've done something where I've lived up to my code, I own all my power, then yeah, if you get rejected, you get rejected. Because nowadays, I think my connection would be more of an avoidant, I guess, for the very most part. And so, yeah, when people reach that threshold, because here's the other problem, like with what I'm talking about, when I avoid someone or I cut them off, it's because I'm like making a judgment of their soul. It's not like just one boundary push, not just one boundary breach. It's like I'm assessing you as the whole is just unredeemable to me. And that's why I'm out, because I just don't see you changing completely who you are. So like, that's like, I make these determinations, and maybe that's a wrong thing to do. But so far, I don't think it's ever served me wrong for that way. And then another person asked me here, Gabriel, they said, like, when it comes to the connection, so like, if you only want physical connection on your terms, like, is that selfish? Maybe. And I say, maybe it is selfish a little bit, but it is like my emotional safety, where like, if I'm just not in the mood for physical connection, like, I don't feel like it to be in the need of torturing myself to do it. Or like, I mean, I'll hug someone, but like, I can still get that kind of like repulsed feeling in me sometimes, where like, I'll still do it, I guess, though. Like, there are people that if I'm not in the mood for it, I can still do it, but I'm certainly maybe not warm about it as I could be. But like, where would you differentiate between someone being selfish, taking care of themselves, versus, I guess, someone just taking care of themselves and their emotional health?
So I can speak to that just in terms of what you said. Okay, so is it selfish? Yes, in a way, but let me explain the caveat. For people who are autistic, and this is not like me making excuses like, oh, well, we just get to act this way and you just have to deal with it. So I'll start here. I believe that where physical connection is concerned, especially, it's there needs to be consent. Like, I don't think that just because you're in a relationship with someone, this now gives you unlimited access to their physical body whenever you decide that you need it at any time. Like that,
I would agree.
that's just my opinion.
So
But
George
I
would say
will,
this, and they embrace you. Wouldn't it be fair to reciprocate? It's nuanced. I would say no, I would say not always. I would say,
so
like, just because someone gives me affection, I don't think I'm required to give it back. Like, if I'm not in the mood for it.
right. So the secondary part of this, and it's important to say, is for autistic people. And again, I'm not saying, oh, well, this is our excuse, so just deal with it. But I'm being real, because I have the same problem as you. Like in that, like, oh, like I get the ugh. So it is a real thing for us when there is an overwhelm that is taking place, like like neurologically. Physical touch for us when we are overwhelmed by other things. So if we are hyper focused, we are thinking about something else, we are tired, you haven't taken a supplement that you need to, like there's a long list of things that can take us out of that window. And physical touch, when we have something astray, can literally feel like torture for us. So it's not that we don't want to reciprocate. That then this comes down to that intent thing again. We're not reciprocating because we're assholes and we don't care about our partner's feelings. For me, if I am overwhelmed by something else, like literally, it could be a number of things, and somebody comes up and gets physically in my space when I'm already overwhelmed, it sends my sensory to the stratosphere, and it makes me feel unsafe, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. It literally feels like things are crawling on my skin, and it's not pleasant. It's
I'm that
not
way
like,
too.
oh, you're coming and trying to hug me and you're being they are being thoughtful for sure. And should we reciprocate it? Like, yes, like I totally get what Gabriel's saying, but for us, it's that intent thing again. We're not shoving them away because we're assholes. It's that it's in that moment, for whatever reason, the sensory is at an overwhelm. So for you, when your central nervous system is even keeled, like you're fed, you're hydrated, you've had sleep, you don't have 87 tabs open, that's probably when you are more likely to have the bandwidth to like accept that high level of sensory. Because physical touch for us, we experience it at a very a much more intense level than neurotypical people.
Sure.
So it can be really amazing, but it can be really overwhelming.
So what Gabriel also says is, I've been in relationships with people
Yeah.
who withhold affection or sex. That's where I'm coming from. And I think, like the difference would be when someone's autistic, like they'll be able to communicate a little bit about what's going on with it. Like, hey, like this is not right now. It's not like withholding like affection or sex could potentially be a punishment if they're doing it for no other reason, perhaps, than to just
Control.
punish. Yes. And so that would be a control element, or like a punishment is a control element too. But if it's the emotional safety variety, hopefully someone would communicate that. Because like I said, I can still give a hug. I might like be like shivered, but like I can still do it. Now, like sex is a different story where like unless you're in a relationship as a guy, you're not going to have so many cases of like, oh, some woman needs it, but you're not in the mood. But like, no, that's like a relationship problem for the most part, right? It's not going to be something that happens all the time. But even that, though, I could see myself saying no. I could see myself being like a woman and being like no, like if I'm not in the mood, that's it. Sorry. Like, and again, like a one-time thing, okay. But like when's the line with that though too? When is there even a line? Like my thoughts on it would be like when there's connection and you're both on the same page, sex just happens naturally. Like it's not
Yeah.
something you have to like think about or plan out in any way. But when the playing field is not safe and you're both not on a good ground with one another, then yeah, I can understand, especially when women don't want to have sex. And again, I guess me being an autistic person, it's like, okay, it's similar. It's similar to being a woman in that case, where if you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. And some guys, I guess, that's just not a thing for them. Like it's just, and granted, and I have some of that too. But when it comes to other people, it's different because the energies of others can simply be overwhelming or intense. And I've also had this thing where I can dissociate via sex as well sometimes, where like it's hard to get comfortable with someone sometimes, but it just depends. And even for me in particular, some of the people I've been closest to in my life are people I've never even slept with. It's people that like I just had connections with and friendly with. And I mean, I've had my fair share of sexual partners, but a lot of them I was never in that level with ever, outside of maybe a few of
Yeah.
the many. But like, it just goes to show you sex is not everything. With like sex is like different to me almost, which is also maybe an intimacy disorder in me in a way where I really can separate them. There's sex and then there's connection, and there's like maybe healthy sex, and then maybe like using sex, which is more like maybe dark and destructive, or like something just not quite right with the energy. Maybe, I don't know, but I see it in both aspects of it where like I said, the people I've been closest with, several of them in my life, I've never slept with, but they're people that I talked the most to. And it wasn't necessarily because they weren't into me either. All of them became into me at a point. And there comes a point though also when I'm really close to someone, it can almost, especially if it's never happened before, it can be the most difficult to be intimate with people like that sometimes in my experience. But again, that hasn't happened to me for a while. So I don't know how that would be for me now. So it's like, I think now that would be different. I think, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. Um it's interesting because I'm just thinking I have a feeling that I probably know the answer from you, but
What's that?
just with respect to sex versus connection and when you're actually connected to a person, like what that looks like. So like I know women can experience sex differently than men, but as a woman, what I will say is um I'm feeling risque saying this, but here's P Dubz being shy. Um I personally can, like, I can if I get into a sexual situation with a man and I'm like, okay, here this be a coming. No pun intended.
You're terrible.
I can, like you, if I'm like, okay, like here I am, I'm going through the motions and I can kind of dissociate from it to an extent. That might sound kind of messed up, but it's just true. That is easier for me and more tolerable for me in terms of a sexual experience versus if I'm really connected to a person, sex or not, it is a bigger deal for me personally to kiss someone.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I mean, the kissing, I think, would be easier for me almost. It's like, I guess for me, what it turns into is it's not the actual act that's not possible. It's like really sexualizing them to get off like intimately with them. Like there's a disconnect there where like having to see them into that sexual light in your head as opposed to, because when you're friends with somebody, for me, it can kind of like be difficult to then transition them into sexual land. Where it's like back in the day, for example, if you're a king, you have your queen, and then there's your like fucking concubine. And like to me, that's like the split that they have. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
queen's like the mother and whatever. And now they have the woman that's just there. That's the sex. And I get where that comes from because it can sometimes feel like it's difficult to splice the two. But when you can splice the two, like that's really where the magic is, right? If you can find the person that you can have a sexual connection with and friends with, I mean, that's just rare. I mean, that's like usually it's one or the other a lot of times. But I guess that's like what the husband or wife material is, right? You get the person that's your friend, that's also the sexual connection too. But it's just hard. And I think a lot of people that are in our space, for men and women both, it's been the woman. They have this like narcissistic bad boy dude that it gave them all the tingles and the feels, but probably was missing that friendship component by the time that thing was over, right? You're like enemies now at this point. And then there's the other problem for the guys to women that maybe they have a guy that's their friend, but they struggle to be turned on by that guy because they're more just in that friend area. So like you see how it can be in both ways. So I've seen a lot of women, they find a way to have a partner because they kind of let go of that want of the bad boy dude. And they kind of just accept like, all right, I'll be okay with this guy. He fits enough of the boxes. And yeah, maybe he doesn't like blow my back out or something, but he'll do. He'll do as a life partner kind of thing. Like, have you seen that?
Yeah, I absolutely have. And you know, it's funny while you were, I don't want to say I'd forgotten about this, but I'd sort of forgotten about this. While you were talking, you made me think about just the whole like sexual relationship, friendship. That's like I said, it's the holy grail. And you know, when I was with Hegel, he told me like after we got married and we were married for a little bit. And he told me one night, he said, "You want to know what is really weird about you?" And I thought, oh God, here we go. Well, because with him, it's like, well, what is it going to be, right? It's like Forrest Gump, life's like a box of chocolates. With Peggy, you never know what you're going to get. He said that before he married me, all of his relationships were totally sexually focused for him. Like it was like I needed to be in a relationship so that I could have a sexual outlet. And I like beyond that, I just really didn't care. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. He goes, yeah. And he's like, you know what's really weird with you? He's like, I actually really like you. Like you're like my best friend. And I also like doing that with you. And he's like, isn't that weird? And because he's a freaking full scope malignant narcissist with psychopathic traits, I'm sitting there thinking, So that's normal. That's like what it should be. That's like the best of the world. But you just made me think about that he was so blown away that he had this experience with me. And when you were saying that, it's true. Like we did. That's why my relationship with him was so weird too, because we were really good friends. Like we got along. We had things in common. Like when he wasn't being, the things, like I actually really liked him. I enjoyed hanging around him. We went golfing and we did shit and we got along fine. And so it's, I do think that, subtract the narcissism, people should be looking for relationships that have both sides. Like it should not just be one or the other. Like this is, if you're going to have a successful relationship, you actually need to want to be around that person, not just, well, I like you when I feel attracted to you and we're in there doing that thing. Like you should want to like hang out with them for you with your routine, even if, some things you might want a person in and sometimes some you might not, but I'm just thinking of the things I know about you, right? Like going and having your coffee with you when you have your coffee, or like maybe they're like, hey, like can I make some popcorn too? Like it's like those little intimate connection things that show like a person actually cares about you and what you're doing, not just, well, I like the way you look and we do this sex thing really well, so that's all there is to it. Like there's something really important about caring about a person and what they do and what they think about and feel. And that's why autistic people, we do that really goddamn well. But it's why we are vulnerable for that type of person, because we provide that. And they're like, yes, great aim to fly.
And you probably get along though with a lot of guys, if I had to guess. Like you probably have had way more connections with dudes than you do women.
Yes. And I learned that there's things there again with the neurodevelopmental thing, but like I remember when I lived in Seattle and because we went golfing all the time, and I don't know, we were at whatever hole we were at and something happened, and I said to my buddy, I was like, so just so you know, I grew up with boys. Like I'm talking like there was like one girl on the block and it was me and like 6 boys.
Kelly
and
on the
like
block?
So we played I made all these things up, like hide and go seek tag and all this kind of stuff. Anyways, my buddy he goes, that explains everything about you. And I kind of said, like, what do you mean by that? He goes, I've never met a girl like you. Like you understand dude banter. Like you understand dudes and what we do, and you don't get on our case for, doing something kind of weird or farting or just like you don't react to any of it. And a lot of girls don't, they react. And I was like, I don't know, it's what I grew up with.
They're like Foreigner waiting for a girl like you or something like that. Right? That's
that lyric I know.
See, good. That's 80s reference. That's why. Or was that early 90s? I can't even tell you.
No. That's prime mid 80s Foreigner. Yeah.
Some classic romantic ballads in the 80s there with
Foreigner,
Motley Crue, Def Leppard, whoever else was in there. Rockin'. Def Leppard was my jam though. When I was like 2 years old or 3, they would plop me in front of MTV back when MTV played music videos, and I would just sit there and watch music videos all day, or at least as long as I was able to. Now, 2 other things that you made me think of. One, in the Stephen King book, I think it's part of the Dark Tower series, Roland the Gunslinger, the main character in the story, he loses his virginity to a prostitute when he's like 15 or something like that. And he said that the prostitute refused to kiss him because it made him realize that a kiss can be more intimate than sex, to which I could definitely see. I could definitely see that, right? So why else would a prostitute have a no kissing rule? Oh, it can have sex, but no kissing. So it's like there's something a little more sacred about a kiss sometimes. The other thing, I've asked you this before, but did you read East of Eden by John Steinbeck?
No.
So there's an element of the story where this guy, he's married and he runs like some sort of successful business. It might have been a whorehouse, actually. I don't remember. But like, and this is the book from the 1950s, but he falls in love with the psychopath Kathy. But it's not like a healthy, stable love. It's like the emotional roller coaster, infatuation, obsessed kind of love. Like, and he knew it too. He knew this girl was taking him for a ride, like taking his money, like he was buying her gifts, but he was just doing anything to make her happy. And then, like, she exploited him so badly that he's like, you know what, screw this. And then he like beats her. And then that's when she winds up at these two brothers' home. And that's where she winds up with one of the brothers. But the point is, the guy told himself after he fell in love with that girl, Kathy, I would never love a woman like that again. And the funny part about it was he was married the whole time. Like he has a wife the whole time, but it's a different thing, right? He's seeing it as a different thing because it's this highly charged emotional thing. So, and I would say in a lot of relationships, marriages, that emotionally charged component, I think it just goes away. The familiarity kind of just, it turns into something different. And I think it can turn into something more powerful in a way, or the connection can be deeper. And maybe that's a better way to put it. Not necessarily more powerful, but the connection's deeper. But it's different. It's different than that emotional roller coaster infatuation thing. And I think that's what he was talking about. And it's the same thing Robert Greene talks about in The Art of Seduction, where he said a lot of the old seducers of the day, especially in France, they were seducing married women. Like, so married women are with their stable, boring person, but they're dying for an emotional roller coaster ride. They're dying for anything to get them outside of themselves to feel again. And what Robert Greene says is more people are like that than not. So a lot of people think, oh no, they're married. They're good. They're a good boy. They're a good girl. But no, definitely not always. He said many more times than you would like to think. They're open. They might pretend like they're not at first, but he said the seducers, they all see it as a game. And there's women seducers too, by the way. Like nowadays, I don't think a woman really even has to have much skill to do it. But back then they did. Back then, when they had to overcome like the stigma of being a woman and the rules against being a woman, they actually had to be really smart about it. Nowadays, all you need is an Instagram profile and posting some bikini pics and you can fucking do whatever you want half the time. But back then, that wasn't how it was. So they actually had to learn like how to seduce a man, which was pretty interesting to read about. But I liked his books, Robert Greene's Art of Seduction, Mastery, 48 Laws of Power. What's another one? Those are the three ones I remember. But they're fairly life-changing books. Now, the 48 Laws of Power, though, that's almost like a narcissist psychopath Bible. So you have to kind of be careful with that one. So if you see dudes with the 48 Laws of Power on the bookshelf, it's like, ooh, I wonder what's going on there.
Red flag.
Maybe a Amber
Amber. Okay.
Amber alert
I'll
flag.
remember that.
Although I probably have it sitting on my shelf, so that'd be an Amber alert flag on me, I guess. But I like to read everything. And so it's just interesting because the one thing he does in the Art of Seduction book, just the way he phrases and frames the whole dynamic, kind of just puts it into this like magical thing that, because everyday life can be fairly mundane for most people, right? They go to fucking work, they have their family, they have their kids. There's not much excitement involved for them. But for people like us, maybe, even to the average person, our lives, just with our like mini bit of social media fame, that's interesting and different for most people. Like most people don't have 100,000 TikTok followers like you do. Have you gotten there yet?
I don't think, not quite. Close. 99 point.
Yeah, you'll be there soon. You'll be there soon.
Yeah.
The bottom line, you'll get there. But most people don't have to deal with that. Like most people, that's a different thing. So, and that's kind of how I am too. Like, I don't know how I would do it anymore if I had to go back to like a normal job now. I don't even know if I'll be able to manage it. And maybe that says something about me. But like now that I'm out of that whole world, I don't know how I would go back in the world. I don't know how you put the toothpaste back in the tube. Once you put in the wizard cap on and you have all your wands, how do you go back to the 9 to 5 world? I don't think you can. So it's like I'm in the burning of the boats land. It's like you make this thing work, or I don't know. I don't know what, but you got to make it work.
Agreed.
So, but again, I'm lucky in that way because it is interesting. I kind of lose sight of it sometimes. Like when you were telling me the other day that whoever it was, maybe it was your doctor, they were saying, "Oh, you do this on TikTok." It's like that's different. That's interesting. I mean, I talk to you so much that I don't even think of it, like because it's just like it's my normal now, which is also your normal. But sometimes it takes something like that for me to think of it differently. I'm like, oh yeah, like it is different. It is something unique and something that most people just aren't doing.
Yeah, well, and I think he had no idea that I was, I don't know, like it's weird, right? Like if you look at some of what's going on with me or what's wrong with me, whatever the hell you want to say, and then you look at what I'm doing like with TikTok and my book and just even things like this, like it's not congruent, sort of. Like people kind of are like, oh, like what? Like you were trapped in a foreign country in a pandemic and you're on disability and da, 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 but you're like, yeah, you're doing stuff like this. And I'm like, well, people have to understand that it's a very different thing for me to sit in my living room by myself talking to a screen. Like, yes, I'm talking to you and I know there are people watching, but still, like, there's no one in this room, versus going back to my job at the hospital, which is that is healthcare. Healthcare right now in both our countries is a whole conundrum of sorts. And there's like real, like, it's like people in your face, and it's just different. It's a different kind of thing for the limbic system. And where I'm at right now in my healing and what all the things that I'm doing, like, this is the stuff that makes my heart tick, like it's the stuff that I like care about. And, like, trust me when I say, like, I would not be able to stay awake until 11:04 p.m. to talk about paint drying or I don't know, something else. But this stuff I can't. Like I can kind of keep going. So it just, I don't know. I think he was just more surprised, like, oh, damn, you're like actually doing something in the background that's not, I don't know. I think it's a stigma. I think people think I have PTSD from everything that happened, and they maybe think that I'm kind of just sitting here in the dark and not really doing anything. And it's like, well, no, like I'm actively trying to figure out how to turn all of this into purpose and get better, instead of sitting in a corner in the dark and being like, well, that's all, folks.
Yeah, I mean, Conor McGregor was that. Conor McGregor was on government assistance with his girlfriend before he made it big. Like before he was Conor McGregor, he was on government assistance in Ireland. Like
there you go.
And now he's worth hundreds of millions, like maybe even $1 billion. I don't know. But he just announced he's running for president in Ireland. So that's on the radar there. So he's going to try to maybe do the Trump playbook, if I had to guess. He's going to be like a younger, perhaps more charismatic version of Trump, but maybe like similar in some ways too. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, I guess people, like when they're on, like what you're on, people wouldn't think sometimes like you're doing other things. I guess I can understand that. But you are doing, like, you're doing big things. Like you're in the middle of this book that's going to be a trilogy, and you have this TikTok channel. And I've been telling you to get on YouTube, and I've been telling you to do more things on Instagram, and I've been telling you to do like a Facebook page or something, because there's just no reason not to. Like you're missing out on those 3 other platforms.
I gotta expand. No, I did actually open up a Facebook account. I just haven't posted to it. So
P Dubz. Come on, P Dubz. But here's the other thing. It's we don't know what's going to happen to Tickety Talk.
I know.
Tickety Talk might get banned from Americans. They might have a different version of it. I don't know. Like, I haven't done any homework on it since you said that to me about Trump saying they might just let it die.
I haven't seen anything since that Aaron Parnas video I sent you. That was the first thing that I saw, and I was like, oh, this is weird. But I haven't seen a single thing since then, so I have no idea.
Well, no one's talking about it. No one's talking about it now.
Nope. So I'm like, whatever.
I don't know why. But I think what also is happening is there's been so much other bullshit in the news between Charlie Kirk, the Epstein files, Karen from the baseball game, the Coldplay cheating scandal, the what else was going on? Ozzy Osbourne dying. There's been a lot of big current events of the last several months here.
Yeah.
And Tickety Talk is just as big and definitely more life impacting for people like us. I mean, it's going to impact your life most of all if you don't get on these other platforms. Like, if it does something happen. Now, it might not happen to Canada, though, right? So to be fair, they'll still have the rest of the world. America just might not be eligible anymore. I don't know.
Well, and that's exactly what would happen but that being said, I would suspect that a huge percent, like, I actually don't know, I would have to go and look, but I would suspect that a huge percentage of my following is, not all, but there's a large chunk that's from America, so that if you guys get banned, then I would lose it. Sorry.
So Jolly says she really appreciates this interview. Jolly says, Ellie says, you sparkle, Kelly, like sparkle motion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
I mean, it's only 2:09 on the East Coast, miss. Like I said, I'm half a vampire. You're not.
No, because I go to bed at 9:30 or 10, and I will be wide awake at 5 a.m.
All right, Katy Perry, calm down.
Katy Perry?
You're wide awake?
Oh, I missed the reference. See, that's how slow I'm getting.
No, I can be sharp at all hours of the day while I'm still on. The camera makes my brain work faster.
There you go. It's a superpower.
For now. And I guess to wrap this up into a bow here also, I guess the last question will be, now that you know that you're autistic, what has it changed for you? Like, what kind of pieces of the puzzle did it put together for you?
Oh, huge pieces, because CPTSD gave me a lot of the pieces, right? But like I said way earlier on in the interview, when I said that, as I started to, once I got to self-led integration, which is like the holy grail, and my therapist was like, ew, I was feeling frustrated because some of the things that were showing up that were actually autistic traits that, I thought were CPTSD traits, I took it like, I'm not working hard enough. There's something wrong with me. I should be further along. And so then when I learned what parts of me are just a baseline that I have to be aware of, live with, have compassion for. I don't need to be a prisoner in my own body anymore. I don't need to look at it the way that I looked at it for so long. So it's kind of like freed me. Like if there were chains attached to me, it's like those chains were released. And I'm finding that very liberating, freeing, because I'm like, okay, I don't need to put myself down for this or that or the other thing. And when things come up now too that I feel overwhelmed by, I kind of check in to see what's going on. But it has allowed me to start really appreciating, I'm being careful about what I say, only because of, I don't want to tell everybody my whole goddamn book, but it's allowing me to really, for the first time in my life, it's like, as weird as this is going to sound, when I look at myself in the mirror, it is like, oh, hi, like, I'm Kelly. It's nice to meet you. Like, it's nice to actually meet the real you with your true authentic parts, being aware of my wounding, right? Because I've talked a lot about the 3 core wounds on my channel, of the scapegoat, and living life through a very different lens. Like, something as small as, for some people, this might feel really stupid, but for me, it isn't, because since I was 13 years old, I have been dyeing my hair every color under the rainbow in the sun. It started with Sun In when I was 13, and then it just kind of went from there. This is my natural hair color. This is my real hair color. Like, there's a little bit of blonde still left over. And I'm trying to just embrace that there is nothing wrong with my hair color. It's actually a very nice hair color. And instead of trying to change myself, if I want to dye my hair because I want to dye my hair, that's fine. But if I'm dyeing my hair because I think that if I look different, or I'm blonde, or I'm whatever, that I'm going to somehow accept the parts of me that I was shoving into a box in a corner of shame, and like, oh, like, those parts of me are not acceptable. But maybe if I have blonde hair, I'll be just fine. Like, I'm trying to learn to love myself exactly as I am. This color hair, I'm 43. This is how I look. I take care of myself the best I can. I'm leading down a path of peace and purpose. Like,
Oh, two
that's
more
what I'm
P's.
doing.
2 more P's. For those who don't know, P Dubz, peaceful and pleasant. But what was that? Purpose and passion, or no?
Purpose. So it's all about the peace, the purpose, and I mean, it's being pleasant, but it's more about feeling just it's at peace with yourself. Like, you are fine with all of your parts. You are not ashamed of any of your parts. You know that you're leading an authentic life in your authentic self. You are behaving and thinking and feeling in the world, like, with yourself and with other people, in a way that makes you feel proud, and you're not abandoning yourself. Like, I abandoned myself in every single way possible. There's a lot of that in the book, and the detriment that had on me, and the ways that I nearly lost my life over it. I didn't end up trapped in a foreign country for no reason, right? So it's really welcoming her with open arms, autistic and all, and realizing that the people that are supposed to be in my world, they're going to be in my world. And I don't need to contort my goddamn self to have them approve of me or love me. If they don't, if I know that I'm acting at my highest authentic self, like self-actualization, and I'm treating people with respect, and they find me to be too much or too deep or whatever, why do I want to dumb myself down to accommodate to their discomfort with depth? Like, that's just not for them. But I don't need to make it mean something about myself. And I made it mean something about me my whole life. Like, I have to be perfect for this person. I have to look this way for this person. I have to be this way in the world. Like, that's fucking exhausting.
It's the insecure attachment, right? The anxious
Oh, yeah.
attachment style. Jolly says she thinks your hair is beautiful. And she says also, I really appreciate this interview. Thank you, Jared and Kelly.
Thank you for being here.
It was worth it to stay up to listen to you both talk about autism and narcissism and CPTSD. It's been our pleasure, of course.
Yes.
Let's see what else we have here. Yeah. Oh, and that's the other thing I was going to say about it. Learning I was at least helped me to understand that, all right, well, this is where that layer of anxiety was coming from me outside of everything else. Like, it was before, really, like the severe traumas and bullying and addictions, that physical anxiety layer came first. And so all the time that when I went into drug and alcohol recovery, I thought I was just trying to heal trauma. But what I didn't notice was I was also trying to self-medicate autism the whole time too.
Yep.
because I didn't like that severe anxiety. And as a existential question, I still wonder sometimes, like, what's the value of, oh, maybe if I stopped all my supplements, I would be much more raw on autistic. But and there's I don't like that though. Like the way I was showing up in the world is not a way I liked without it. And now once I have this routine, now it's different. Like now I think especially even as a guy, everyone it's much different now than what it was. And it wasn't until I got this routine that things start falling into place. But I still sometimes wonder, and I've asked this on the channel before. It's like, well, like I wonder if there's some sort of spiritual lesson I'm missing with that, where it's like, oh, maybe you should be trying to like suffer through it. And then I don't know. But I said, screw that. Like, I'm not going to suffer in that because I just couldn't see the value of that much anxiety in my life and like
No.
not being able to articulate myself. I just didn't see how that would help. Now, I would certainly probably talk to different people. I definitely wouldn't be talking to you right now, more than likely, because like my channel didn't really like take off until I started doing these things for myself. Like, so it's hard for me to see how it could be a bad thing. But sometimes I wonder if it is. I still wonder. And it makes you wonder.
I get that question. But my thought is how is you taking the supplements that you take hurting anyone else, right? Like it has, whereas if you didn't take them, it could affect you negatively and maybe it could affect your interpersonal realm negatively. Like I don't take as many supplements as you do, but I will say that the ones that I take, they absolutely help me. And I think, you know, given your very unique and extensive journey with drugs and alcohol, I've told you 100 times, I really think that you should, you know, at some point sit down and write a little book. Because you overcame that world in such this unique way. And I think there are given my own battles with substances and things like that along the way, and like I've had disordered eating and, you know, a bunch of different stuff. I think there's value for people to hear how far it went and what you did to get out of it, because there are so many people out there that are probably undiagnosed autistic or whatever it is, right? And they're experiencing this anxiety, this alexithymia, like all the different things that we've talked about in some fashion tonight. And they have no idea where to turn or what to do. And so a lot of them do end up using substances. A lot of them do end up coping maladaptively. It doesn't need to be drugs. It could be, you know, like reckless behavior or gambling.
Sure.
Like there's so many things. So for them to go, oh shit, you are a neurosparkly person who is coping by doing these things, and this is what your life looks like. I think that I could do that. Like that's huge. That's huge.
I totally agree. I mean, Ellie says you were helping us, Kelly, sharing your journey and lessons learned.
Thank
Which
you.
is to me and Jared, and you are as well, helping us have new understandings. Happy to help, of course. I guess the question that always comes to mind to me is it's kind of like the Serenity Prayer +1. And the +1 is what I'm about to tell you. So the Serenity Prayer, accept the things you cannot change and have the courage to change the things you can and the wisdom to know the difference. But the +1 part is the things you can change, should you? And that's like the Jurassic Park question, which is when Ian Malcolm says about the scientists, you guys tried and thought so much about whether you could, you never stopped to think about whether you should. And so that's the question I think about sometimes. It's like, okay, accept the things you cannot change, have the courage to change the things you can, the wisdom to know the difference. But then which things that you can change, maybe you shouldn't change. And where's the wisdom to know what you should change, even if you could? So examples could be even things like plastic surgery. All right, you can change it, but should you? Is there growth that you would experience from not doing it? Or maybe there's other examples. I mean, supplementation is another example too, of course. Or maybe other medicines are an example. Or I don't know. Do you think of any other examples of like questions where it's tempting to want to change something, but maybe it's not always necessary?
I think that the majority of the world, for real, like the majority of the world believes that if we change this, then that. It is a real thing that, like I referenced earlier with the hair, you're talking about supplements. I think a lot of people really believe that if they change this one thing, then they're gonna be relieved. They're gonna be happy. They're gonna find the thing that they're looking for. And I don't. It is not that simple. Are there now? I'm not suggesting to people, don't change a goddamn thing about yourself. Just be exactly what you are and be radically. That's not what this is about. Yeah, you don't. You want to color your hair. Color your hair. You want to cut it. You want to do this. You want to get. There are people that want to get their nose done. Like, I don't care. Like, my big thing is, if it's not hurting other people, who gives a hoot about it? But just know that at the end of the day, in your internal way of being, that authentic self, there's going to be no nose job or hair color or weight or experience even that you're going to have that you're suddenly going to connect to your true authentic self, or you experience true, because I believe that true happiness comes from having peace and purpose. True peace and true purpose. Without those two, forget it. Because yeah, you get a dopamine hit from dyeing your hair and looking at it and it's all pretty, but does that bring you true peace? Does that
What
give
Viktor
you
Frankl
purpose?
said?
No.
You know what Viktor Frankl said?
Mm.
You know Viktor Frankl?
Yeah, but what did Viktor Frankl say?
So in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he said that happiness cannot be pursued. It must ensue by pursuing a meaningful life. That was his words for it.
Oh, I like that.
You would write the book if you haven't read it.
Oh, I should. Oh, wow. That's deep, and it's aligned with so much of what I'm doing here.
Well, sure. And then the other thing would say, like, he was in Auschwitz as a Jewish person, and he had said the Nazis could take away all of his freedoms except for one, the freedom for him to choose how he would respond in any given situation. Because he had said, between stimulus and response, there's a gap, and in that gap, you can choose how you respond. So to me, in our space in particular, you don't really get much of that dynamic, right? You get more of the just talking about the other. But this is more of like a stage 2 of healing concept where you work on you and your side of things, right? And I think, ironically, before I got into the narcissism space, I was way more involved in that space. And I don't think it's a coincidence, though, that I became mildly successful, but it's because I had the capitalist porn background. Like, you need that base a lot of times to like do something. Like, you got to have that mindset. You got to have something like determination to get somewhere. And if you don't have it, you're just not going to get there. So I call it capitalist porn, but I say it endearingly. I don't say it insultingly. It's just, it is what it is. Like that part, the self-improvement part, right? I think a lot of people in our space, it kind of stops after just learning about narcissism. But that's the cool thing about your page is also more focused on the EMDR. It's also more focused on CPTSD healing. It's also more focused on, now that you know you're autistic, what do you do with this information? What do you do from here? So you're more solutions oriented, I think, than most, which is good.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons why the people that are not ready for that, it's one of the theories why, because I had a girl, I think I showed you the comment, it was last week. She found my page. I popped up on her FYP, and I guess she went into the deep rabbit hole of Kelly's content, and she said, I am shocked that you're not viral. Like, no one is talking about the stuff you're talking about, or I haven't found them. She's like, I don't know where they are. She's like, I can't believe that you don't have more following. And I chuckled and I was humbled and I said, well, thank you for being here. And it's something that I've discussed with other creators, that because I am so truthful and I'm going down here is the reality of what happened in this family. Here's the reality of what happened in childhood. Here's the attachment stuff. I get really deep. I have depth. I'm neurosparkly. So I give people the real meal deal in the healing, and I take them alongside in my journey. Like the day that I had the relapse, like I didn't advertise the whole thing, but I did do a video when I finally collapsed after 50 freaking thousand steps, because that's my trauma response. It's flight. And I was sitting on the ground on the wet grass in a park, and I was honest. I just said, you know what? Healing from this is really messy. There are some days I come here and I educate you guys and I talk to you and I feel like I've got it and I've figured it out. And then I have another day where I feel like a goddamn mess. And I want you to see that this is very real for me. That yes, I'm an educator and I'm helping people, but I'm also a survivor that's doing the real work. Like, I'm not just spouting off bullshit. I am putting myself through a lot of grit and I'm already resilient, but I've had to build a tremendous amount of emotional muscle. And a lot of people, in this space, they get to the place where you have to actually lift up the goddamn dumbbell, not just say, well, it's all that, like, I'm a victim and it's everybody. Like, yes, that's all true. You are a victim and this shouldn't have happened to you. Full stop. But when they actually figure out that healing takes some level of participation, they're actually going to have to pick up the dumbbell and get a little bit uncomfortable. A lot of them are out. And so my page makes them face that. And if you're not ready to face that, I'm not going to resonate with you. It's like, in a way, it's like a person who's, addicted to alcohol, and they are not prepared to just confess that in order for me to get to my next step in this, I have to stop saying, well, I drink all the time because I was abused and I drink all the time. That is all true. That is all true. And it is fair and it is justified and no one would blame you. But if you want to stop and you want to actually get over here, you're going to have to put that down. And a lot of people, they're like, nope, don't like that.
Got to put down the ducky. Got to put down the ducky if you want to learn the saxophone. Haven't you ever heard that?
No, you're just full of these things. I love it.
You go on YouTube, you got to look up Ernie, put down the ducky. If you want to learn how to play the saxophone, it's from the 80s. You should know it. Don't they have Canadian Sesame Street?
Of course, I watch Sesame Street. Oh, okay, Ernie, dude, forgive me. It's 11:30. I'm like half awake, half here.
That's your homework now, is to look up on YouTube, Ernie. If you want to learn to play the saxophone, you got to put down the ducky. You'll find it from there. But here's the same one. He's talking about the same one. But his problem was he couldn't put down the ducky, so he couldn't play the saxophone. So now they need the 2025 remix, put down the cell phone if you want to learn how to play the saxophone. So that would be the remix. So they should probably do that. But no one could accuse you of not being authentic, I would say, on your TikTok. And I think that's a good thing with most autistic people. They will struggle to be fake. I think most of them, I don't think they could be fake even if they tried. Like, it's just going to be against their code and their spirit. So I just wouldn't be able to do it. So, like, there's only one way I'm going to show up, and that's authentically. I don't know how all the people that grift, like in the political world, I don't know how they do it. Like, but they do it. They sell out and they do it. Maybe the dollars help them sleep better at night. I don't know, but I just wouldn't be able to do it. And for you, I mean, you do have a good following. I mean, like 100,000 isn't nothing, but I guess maybe she's thinking that you would be up to like 500,000. But here's the other thing. On TikTok, there's people that they're just there and they do a little lip sync or they do like a dance thing. They're the accounts that are the most popular.
Yeah.
Even us, we're in a niche. we're in a healing niche, which is a smaller niche of all of TikTok. The biggest niche is the people just doing dances or lip syncing. And a lot of what makes people popular with that, especially the younger women, is it's really just how they look. Like a big portion of it is how they look. So there's one woman like Fiorella, I think her name is. Yeah, they call it the face card now. The kids say they have the face card, and that's what it is, right? That's a big, but also a personality element with it, and that's all you need to be huge and to be like rich from TikTok. But it goes to show you also, it's not about who's the most talented. It's not about who's the smartest, who works the hardest. Sometimes there's just intangibles that are just completely out of your control that really help someone be successful. And like another person just wouldn't be able to reproduce it. So I think everyone has to like lean into what their advantages are. So maybe our advantages are authenticity. So you lean into that advantage, or you lean into the doing the work side of things, which you are. And so, I mean, like, is there anyone even on TikTok in the healing space, like with over 1 million people? There's probably a couple, but probably not that many.
Couple, but there are a few creators that are, you know, I don't know, in our space that are, you know, 4, 5, 6, 800,000. And so I mean, I don't know what that girl was. I don't know what she expected, but that was just what her comment was. And like I say, I have been told, not in criticism, like it hasn't been in like, oh, you're not viral because da 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 da.
Oh, yeah.
It's people that have come to me and said, dude, you are either like the thing someone has been looking for their whole life, or you're the thing that scares them more than the person that's phobic of spiders. Like it is very much one or the other. And the people that do come to my space, they go deep. Like they ask really like deep, detailed questions. Or I just get people that laugh at me or tell me that I'm an idiot. Or like that girl that sent me that message, and she said, remember I showed you that one? She was like, you're a stupid, deformed gerbil.
My Lord. They go hard in the paint against you.
I don't know. Like TikTok has turned my bullying filter, like not me, they've turned my bullying filter to the maximum filter, because there are so many people, and I've looked at some of the comments sometimes, and some of them are, I question, you know, what associations there are there, because the comments just feel a little too personally inclined. But then again, I'm like, oh my God, like my video about the scapegoat systemic erasure triggered you to the point that you needed to tell me that I deserved to be beaten. Like, okay, that's what we're doing today. Like, those are the comments that I get.
I mean, I think they might be flying monkeys of you know who, perhaps, but because most people don't get that kind of violent. I mean, I'll get some shit. I'll get some shit on YouTube. I'll get some shit on Facebook. But it's usually about the same stupid things. If I have a sleeveless shirt on, they'll tell me to put a shirt on. If they see my wand, they'll say, what is that, a crack pipe?
Yeah.
And then what else will they say? Or they'll make fun of how I say condescending, or they'll say I blink too much, or they'll say, in the very beginning, people would actually get very mad at me before I was like a little more popular. They're like, you're this bastard talking about narcissism. Brr. And so like, they'd be really mad. They'd be like, I'm going to punch you in the face. I'm like, oh, okay.
People are so strange. Like I would never post that on someone's video. Like that's just not even the way I think. No. It's so weird.
People are strange when you're a stranger.
Yeah, Stranger Things.
Not Stranger Things, The Doors.
I said Stranger Things.
I know you did. Because people are strange when you're a stranger. What's the rest of it go? Women are wicked when you're unwanted. That's like the freaking incel theme song, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's true. Jimmy Morrison was talking about that in like 1972. But he was certainly no incel. Not James.
No.
Not for James, but George and others, they think you might decide to kill me soon if I keep you on longer. So it's about time to wrap it up, I would say, so you don't fall asleep on stream. But where can people find you?
You can find me on Tickety Talk. I'm Kelly, CPTSD and trauma educator. You can find me under Tinker Kellita with 2 L's. It's pretty easy to find me. My name is Kelly Conrad.
Yeah, Tinker Kellita, not Tinker Kelly.
It's Tinker Kellita on TikTok. But honestly, if you type in Kelly Conrad, which is literally my name, you will find me. And I am going to start cross-posting.
You're Tinker Kelly on Instagram. That's what
I'm
thinking. So why don't you keep them the same?
Because my Instagram I made in, I don't know, whatever year, 2013. And Tinker Kelly was taken on TikTok. So I had to get creative. I know.
Oh, man. But they'll be able to find you because you're Kelly Conrad.
Yeah, just type in my name. I come up. You will find several fake accounts, but it's the one with the most following. It's pretty obvious. So yeah.
Special P Dubz.
Oh, it's annoying. It's people that offer readings. They send DMs. They're like, I will give you a reading for $200. And then people come to me and they're like, why are you offering me readings? You're a fake. And I'm like, it's not me. I
don't deal with that at all for some reason.
Dude.
Like, that doesn't happen to me very much, if at all. I've seen it. You've told me about it. And I did see it once you told me, but no one ever says that to me.
We know that I have a special problem that other people don't have that's named Peggle.
Yeah. So like I do have fake accounts, right? People, I think any account that's over a certain amount, they probably have fakes.
Yeah.
But my versions of fakes are at least not doing that. At least not that I know of.
Yep, mine are.
Well, because we know who that, and that's for another time to talk more about like the cyber stuff and the Peggles flying monkey bullying.
Yep. Well, thanks everybody.
It's been a pleasure. We almost got the 4 hours. Can you believe it? It was like a Joe Rogan show. But the time flies right by with the Kelly Conrad, doesn't it?
Yeah. Sometimes, eh?
Eh? Is this Canada?
Well, I am in Canada, so you know. Did you stop are we not live anymore?
No, we are.
Oh, we are.
I was gonna say, the last thing to say was how your prime minister is dating Katy Perry. I thought that was crazy too.
Well, when you mentioned Katy Perry before, I didn't know why you were mentioning her, but that's actually where my brain went, is I thought you were going to say something about I don't know why. I thought you were going to say something about Justin Trudeau, and then you were like, ooh, wide awake. And I was like, oh, yeah, no. And if I say something about Justin Trudeau, that's just going to sound really stupid now. But anyways, now you brought it up. So yes, they're dating.
I did not know that until you said. But all right, everybody, we're going to go over and out. Make sure you like the video and share this video with someone else that you think might benefit from learning a little bit about later diagnosed autism, having narcissistic parents, how narcissistic people can target people with autism, and all that good stuff. So thanks for watching, everyone.